Meeting of the Amherst Township Trustees called to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Abraham?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
Uhrig?
Yes.
Kish? Here. I have the Amherst Township meeting minutes from August 25th, 2020. The meeting was called to order at 7:08 p.m. by Chairman Lynch with the pledge to the flag. Roll call: Lynch, Uhrig, Kish present, Abraham absent. Also attending: K. Smarsh, G. Lynch, L. Ashley, R. Cerrone, C. Cerny, and C. Neihart. 8:10:20, a motion by Lynch, seconded by Uhrig, to approve the minutes of the August 11th, 2020 regular meeting as read. All ayes. 8:11:20, a motion by Lynch, seconded by Uhrig, to approve the July 2020 credit card account transaction detail has been reviewed per policy and is accepted as presented, subject to investigation. All ayes. 8:12:20, a motion by Abraham, seconded by Uhrig, to approve payment of bills and approve the financial report with reservations. All ayes. There were no audience concerns. Under correspondence, Fiscal Officer Kish noted that we received confirmation that Amherst Township has been removed from the Dunphy-Vermillion lawsuit in which we were wrongly included. Fiscal Officer Kish also noted that we have received confirmation that our new 2020 Dodge Ram van has been added to our insurance policy. Trustee Lynch noted that the state of Ohio released another $175 million in federal CARES Act funding to local governments, which could potentially provide another $38,000 in additional funds to the township. CARES Act fund expenditures were discussed, including cleaning of offices, storage of PPE, Amherst Township Park walking/bike trail, yard waste, recycling cameras, and dumpster days. Also discussed were large public hearings and the need for a larger venue with media capabilities for a public hearing. The county commissioners have authorized the usage of their system and meeting facilities if needed. Lastly, Trustee Lynch presented the legal opinion of the Assistant Prosecuting Attorney regarding the Amherst Township Building Department and the County Building Department. Under ambulance, there was none. Sheriff, none. Under zoning, R. Cerrone reported 17 permits month to date, including 1 new home, bringing the year-to-date total to 10. 2 new complaints received that will be handled tomorrow. Under fire inspector, Chris Neihart noted the new hydrant at Bricklayers has been installed and should be in service by the end of next week. He would like to meet with the trustees to discuss commercial fire permits. Under road, park, and cemetery, Superintendent Smarsh noted they were busy mowing and trimming in the parks and cemetery. There was a split mulberry tree in the park that was removed. A large maple tree is by the pavilion that should also be removed, but is too large of a job for the crew, so getting estimates. Currently still working on potholes, and there were 3 more emergency storm sewer repairs completed and 3 more to do. Catch basins are 3/4 of the way complete, with a total of 6 completed through the mini grant. Kevin presented an estimate for some concrete work on Hidden Glen, Fieldstone, Berry Ridge, and Aspen. There are serious issues that really need to be addressed, but would like to contract it out. Costs were already discussed with the fiscal officer, and dollars are available to do this project. 2 more quotes will be sought before a final decision is made. Trustee Lynch noted that Round 35 project's new deadline is the first week of November, and they are also changing the scoring methodology. Estimates on work needed were provided for Dewey Road and Moss Canyon Drive. A work session may be needed to discuss the scope of the project and how much can be completed. Dewey Road resurfacing might include a cooperative agreement with the City of Amherst. Under Phase 2 permit, Trustee Lynch noted that packets contained information that you could read at your own leisure. Under complaints, they are being handled by the designated individual. Under unfinished business, at the July 28th meeting, it was agreed not to amend the noise resolution. A letter has been prepared and will be signed by all 3 trustees to send to the individual who submitted suggested changes. 8:13:20, a motion by Lynch, seconded by Uhrig, to enter into executive session at 8:40 p.m. according to ORC section 121.22G3 for conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action regarding Amherst Consolidated Properties. Roll call, all ayes. 8:14:20, a motion by Lynch, seconded by Uhrig. Move to return from executive session at 9:20 p.m. All ayes. The next regular Board of Trustees meeting will be Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. at the Amherst Township Hall. 8:15:20, a motion by Lynch, seconded by Urick, to adjourn at 9:21 p.m. All ayes.
Are there any changes or corrections to the August 25th meeting minutes?
Yes, I found one. Motion 812, the motion was made by Lynch, and that Denny wasn't there. That's the only correction that I could find.
Okay, then can I have a motion to approve the August 25th, 2020 meeting minutes with corrections?
So move.
Second.
Urick?
Yes.
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham, you abstain.
Abstain.
Doesn't happen often. Then you have the financials in front of you. I'm glad you have the financials in front of you. We had some computer issues going on from 8 o'clock this morning till 6:30 this evening. So luckily we were able to get this out in time from 6:30 to 7. The biggest expenditures was the catch basins from Sandstone Excavating, a total of $10,860, but we will be getting $5,000 of that back due to the mini grant. And then the Diggers of Ohio was the fire hydrant, and Haynes Construction was finally the, I don't want to say round 2, but the second draw.
Okay, yeah.
Second draw that we finally got. The check was actually dated June 5th. We didn't get it till August 26th. And the check is in there for Haynes Construction tonight to get that to them as fast as we can.
Oh, so you did receive the grant reimbursement, you're saying? Okay, good.
Yeah, on 8/26. But they've been more than patient. They've been asking a lot of questions, and
Okay.
can only do it when we get it. Under revenue to date, we have $1,292,312.72. But please keep in mind that $116,298.67 of that is CARES Act money. And our expenditures were $809,548.31.
Okay, are there any questions on the bills or the financial statements?
I have none.
And can I have a motion to pay the bills and approve the financial statements as presented with reservation?
So move. Second.
Abraham?
Yes.
Lynch?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I went out of order.
Okay, anything else there, Chris?
I don't, other than if you wanted to, I didn't know if you were bringing up the two things financially related, or,
Yeah, you're talking about the CARES Act?
and Roth. I didn't know if you were going to do
Yeah.
both of those right away.
Yeah. Okay, well, and that, Chris, has just made an easy segue into what tonight's meeting is going to be. First off is we're going to spend a considerable amount of time going over the CARES Act, Coronavirus Relief Fund revenues, and plan for the use of those revenues for the best use by the citizens we represent in Amherst Township. Put that in perspective, Amherst Township received $77,532.45 in coronavirus relief funds on July 14th. We received the second disbursement of $38,766.22 on September 1st, for a total of $116,298.67. These funds are federal funds administered by the state and then through our county. And they come with 3 key stipulations, which are, in our case, make it difficult. And those 3 stipulations are that any expenditures or any reason for expending any of these funds, that they have to be necessary expenditures incurred due to public health emergency with respect to the coronavirus disease, COVID-19. The second one is that they were not accounted for in Amherst Township's most recently approved budget as of March 27, 2020. And the third constraint is that the expenditures were incurred during the period that begins from March 1st through December 30th. So even though the first funds made available to Amherst Township by the state was July 14th, it can be used for the cost, and this would be, you see all the signage up, you've seen the changes to the website, you've seen the sanitizers, and various other expenditures, but relatively minor expenditures that are there. Those expenditures that occurred prior to receipt of these funds can be covered and reimbursed. Now the key is there's a bill that the Senate just passed on September 2nd, Senate Bill 357. And the state had additional funds there, and I don't know if they were holding these back, trying to decide, why they've held them so long. So they received a little over $1 billion in federal funds for use and disbursement. And the first disbursement went out to communities of 500,000 or more residents, and they got direct payment before the disbursements that went out to the smaller communities, in our case, the first one on July 14th. Those expenditures were based on the undivided local government fund formula by county, and then within your county it was based on, if you had an alternative formula, how those were dispersed. So in Lorain County, obviously the lion's share goes to the county commissioners and the city of Lorain, and then the rest of us get the residuals off of that. This next expenditure that the Senate passed is based on a per capita basis. So per capita is a little bit more fair to the smaller communities, since some of these alternate formulas that were developed in the counties for distribution of local government funds, basically the county and the largest city are the big gorillas in the room. To get an alternate formula approved, you need the largest city, county commissioners, and a majority of everybody else. So essentially it's what the county and the city of Lorain decide, and is how much comes off. And the counties is pretty much set by statute. So this per capita, you see, is almost double what we received in the first 2 disbursements here of the CARES Act funds. This still has to be approved by the Ohio House. I didn't see where action was taken. I heard a rumor from someone that, oh yeah, they passed it, but I looked online, I didn't see that. I did not call our representative.
I heard the same rumor, but I could not find anything.
Okay. But expect that, and that's an estimate right now that the state's provided, but expect that is going to come. If the House approves the bill as the Senate did it, it does give us a little leeway in the timeline. Right now the timeline is the initial 116,000 and change we received, 116,000. We have to have that encumbered by October 15th. So you see we're on a very short timeline here. Any unspent funds as of December 28th have to return to the State Office of Budget Management. And a final report is due to the Office of Budget Management on December 30th. Now there's an intermediate, that October 13th, if we don't encumber the funds, any funds that were provided to Amherst Township have to go back to our county. And then the county will redistribute that to all the other communities that may have spent their money to decide how they spend it. If we don't do that, it goes directly back to the state, and the state then returns those funds to the U.S. Treasury. if the House agrees and concurs with Senate Bill 357, those dates will change a bit. It will give us some leeway till November 20th for encumbering the funds. December 30th for returning the funds to the Office of Budget Management, so they gave us an extra 2 days there. But it will give us until, let's see, it was February 1st before we have to turn in the report to the Office of Budget Management as far as how we utilize these funds. And then we've also got, so that we'll have a lot to cover on the CARES Act fund, and we have 2 individuals that are invited here as a result of that. We also have 3 resolutions on road projects to take care of. One of them that Kevin's provided 4 bids for some work to get done this year, which we had, Chris had already checked to make sure the budget would support it. And then 2 of them for the OPWC Round 35 applications, which are due in the county engineer's hands by November 6th. And then finally, we've got, Chris had alluded to, there's a resolution in here in terms of providing the Roth option for the Ohio Public Employees Deferred Comp Program, so that our employees have another alternative if they choose. So that's a voluntary situation, but the trustees have to pass a resolution, get that in place. Realize passing this resolution does not make it immediately available. It's just that we had brought this up several meetings ago. Our fiscal officer, Chris Kish, wanted to determine what steps she had to take in updating our financial accounting system to make this happen. So she realizes she still has steps to go. There will still have to be the employee training on this once those steps are in place so they can make a decision. So those are some of the major items we have to cover this evening. Okay. So with that, I'm going to try and make it easier and adjust the agenda here a little bit, welcoming everyone in attendance. I know Dave and Victor are here on invite, but we have 2 residents here that I believe have some issues they'd like to bring before the trustees. So I'm going to do, if we can just welcome you here to our meeting, and if you want to, if both of you have an issue to bring forward, would you raise your hand so I know you do intend to speak? Okay. And I'm going to take it, I know Ms. Justice, I believe you had called ahead of time. So if you introduce yourself to the trustees, tell us where you live and what the issue is.
Yeah, my name is Susan Justice. I live at 8275 Kyle South Amherst Road, Amherst Township.
Go ahead. What's the problem, Susan?
Okay. We're having problems with flooding out there. I've got pictures on my phone if you care to see them. If you don't, that's fine too. But it's been really bad. Every time there's a monsoon rain, me and my neighbors on each side of me all have floods. We have lakes in our yard, and it's all by the road. And I believe you know about it. What's your name? Kevin Smush. He's been out there. He's inspected it. They did come out last year and clean the drain tiles, but they are not working. That guy next door to me has big square manholes on each side of his driveway, and there's times he's got a foot of water across his driveway. He can't even get out. And I have water running from the neighbor's house, and part of it is her sub pump coming down my yard and running through my driveway. It put a big hole there. It's raising up the gravel, and it runs across my front yard like a river out by the road. And they put in a little tiny drain out by a telephone pole to the left of my house when you're facing the road, and that does not drain nothing at all. And I mean, I've got some pictures, and it gets really bad. And my sub pump can't keep up with it. I have pictures of my basement. I have a flood room. You step down in the back of the basement, and that's where the sub pump is. And I get 4 inches of water in there. And my sub pump can't keep up with all this. So I don't know what you guys want to do about it, but something's got to be done. I would like some drainage, like on this side of my driveway, because, I mean, I saw it goes out in the road. I saw cars out my window just splashing through it, driving like heck because they drive fast down that road. So that's what I wanted to address.
Okay.
Something's got to be done.
Yeah, Sue, when you said they put a...
They put a tiny little blue drain. Like out of my yard, but it is not draining that water, and you know what, there was a hole corroded in my yard.
Who is they? You said several times they put a drain. Who put a drain?
Well, he knows about it. You guys were out there.
The county.
Okay, the county.
Okay.
Yeah, I called the county garage on it.
Okay.
And they must have come out and put that drain, but it is not draining nothing.
All right. And Kevin, were you able to reach the county? I'm sure this just happened, so.
Yeah, definitely. And I called the county today as well. And it's like every time that I go out there and go for the water situation. The county last year, I did get them to come out, but they have a line. You know, it's a slope, it's a hill. The water runs down through, the whole slope of the land, you know, is running down towards that low spot. There could be some things done possibly, you know, with the catch basin in that tile, if the new tile is, but that's the county road. So I've told Susan many times that, you know, it is the county road. One thing though that I did see that I mentioned this to you, and the last time that I was out there, Susan, your downspouts are dumping right next to your house. And I showed
You know what, that's not going to cause all that flooding out by the road.
No, but that causes a bunch of water being next to your house, which would get...
I've cleaned those gutters, and I've got a ditch next to my yard, actually.
I know.
And it runs into my sub pump ditch.
I know, but that water dropping next to your house...
That's not going to cause all that flooding during a monsoon rain.
Okay.
All right.
You know, you want to see the pictures. It's terrible.
All right. Well, Sue.
Here, I'll show you one of them.
Sue.
This is it.
All right. Well, we had flooding at our house too, and
This is constantly, you know, I lived there for 18 years, and I have not had this problem except maybe the last 3 or 4 years.
all right. Well, Sue, what I'm going to suggest, since you have the photos, if you can get one of our formal complaint forms and fill it out on there, and since you've got the photos electronically, do you have access to the internet?
Yeah.
Okay, if you can look up Linda Ashley's email on there and email it to her, and what we'll do, Kevin, is just forward everything over to the county engineer with what Sue's issue is. But if you document it, then we've got it written to forward everything, including the photos. And at the bare minimum, they can get out there and check the tiles and make sure that the tiles are clear. I don't know that they'll resize.
You know, the first year they did that, it helped. It really helped. But they've not been out there since.
Well, that's just, if you just help us out here.
Yeah, I'll do whatever I can.
Yeah, we have no authority and work on that one. So if you document that on the complaint form, and just like you took the photos here of the actual water, just take the photo of that complaint form when you have it done so you can email everything as an attachment to Linda. And then, you know, as long as you talk with Linda, we'll get that forwarded over to the county engineer's office to the right people. And on there, Sue, when you see the complaint form, that way all your information's on there so they can contact you directly also. But then we've actually recorded it and have it in place, okay?
Okay, yeah. Something has to get done here.
Okay, but, and just one other thing.
And it's not because of my gutters or anything. I mean, it's all the way down the neighbor's house.
Okay.
And we have a cornfield down the road, and they have the drain ditches. They sit full of water. And this lady down there gets a big old square lake in her front yard.
Yeah,
There's no way that comes from my gutters.
A lot of people had them this week, but...
You know what, I'd be willing to pay for some kind of drainage out there, you know, before my driveway. Because this guy next door has 2 big manholes, one on each side. And one of them is working, but the other one isn't. That one was buried 3 feet under the ground. My basement guy found that. So I let them know, and they dug it up. And it's working, but not very fast. And I don't understand why he's got 2 manhole big square drains like that, and I don't have any. You know, and they did try to put a drain in there, but it doesn't drain nothing. And I got a big hole in my yard now that's corroded with the water going down that, and they were supposed to fix it, and that's not been fixed yet either, so.
Okay, the county?
You know what, I did contact the county garage, and they just left messages, and I wasn't, contacted you guys, the Amherst Township Committee. That anything at all was done.
If you fill out that complaint form, email everything into Linda, we're going to record it on our list of complaints. It'll still have to be the county that takes action, but only our follow-up will just be contacting the county on a regular basis.
Yeah, if I can get her name,
completed.
I'll email her the pictures and the complaint form and whatever I got to do.
Yeah, there's and Steve, I think you just put extras out there in the box, right, because they were empty. So, yeah, that might be the last one, Kevin. You may have to run some copies. Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. David Dempsey, 45002 Middle Ridge Road. My neighbor is running a commercial business next door to me, and he has that permit that he is allowed to run that business there. The concern that I have is, and I don't begrudge anyone for getting better off in this world, but he's growing in business, and the permit allows him to have 2 commercial trucks there. Now we have 3 there. Sometimes there are 5 there. The noise just never stops. He's got the okay from dawn to dusk and utilizes that pretty much. And I think the largest complaint, other than all the noise that is countered over there, are where they park all the diesel trucks and the skid loader. They start them up in the morning and they let all the diesels run, which is normal. And all the diesel fumes, if the wind is just right, which is right quite a bit, it just comes right over into my area. And I have to breathe the diesel fumes. And if it's possible, I know we're not going to get him out of there, but could we park the trucks in another location so I don't have to breathe the diesel fumes? It's got an acre there. It's got plenty of room to move the trucks.
Yeah, Steve, can I ask, who is D. Dempsey?
That's me.
Oh, okay, because I've got a complaint here from August 11th. I was hoping our zoning inspector would be here because it's been assigned.
I could write a complaint every day.
Most people, since it will be maintained on our own YouTube channel, can just get it there versus us having to copy it, or, as we usually would say, well, you bring in whatever the media is with your piece, we will copy it on there and return it to you. And just the way the statute is right now, if we do that internally, there can't be any charge. But we tend to do that to make it easier on people versus having an outside service copy it, which then you can bill them for it. So, I mean, it's just the way you handle it. But our internal labor, you cannot charge for. The other part would be not knowing how long we're going to have these restrictions on numbers of people, and knowing at the last public hearing we had just before the state shut us down, we had over 90 people from the public sign in on the meeting. But there were more people here than that because obviously all the township officials, the prosecutor, the stenographer, the presenters, they didn't sign in. And then we have people that just refuse to sign in. What we do know is we put out every chair the township owns, and there were still people standing. So, we know there were over 90 people here. What we hope to have, not knowing if after this winds through the courts, and we know there's going to be a public hearing afterwards, we don't know if the interest will be the same or if people will give a ho-hum to it, but we have to plan for it. And so what we want is the ability where people can be in their home, log into the public hearing, and they can actually ask questions just as we would normally have you come up to the podium. It won't be that. They'll be selected that, okay, so-and-so, you have the floor, and they can speak from their home. And we'll get into more detail because this is actually, we will also have a physical presence It's now going to be at the county's train station because County Administrator Jim Cordez did not think that, he did not really want us going into the county administration building as originally planned. So he did say that I'm not sure what they call the train station now. They got it.
Transportation Center.
The Transportation Center. That he did offer the Transportation Center, and I talked with, I got that secondhand from Jerry after their last commissioners meeting, and when I asked details, Jerry really couldn't provide them. It's like, well, are they going to take their equipment then over to the Transportation Center? Because right now they've got it all in a nice room up on the 4th floor in the county administration building. He didn't know. And I said, well, what's Columbia Township doing? Because they have one coming up. Well, things change in Columbia Township. Now in Columbia Township, the law firm that's involved in their case is providing all the technology to take care of it. And Jerry said you might want to check, and I forget the name of the law firm involved here that represents the developers, but he said a law firm of that size might already have it. And I said, well, I'll check into that. And I've made an inquiry, but haven't received a response back. But in any case, we have to have a setup here at the township for people that don't have internet access, maybe don't have a cell phone, so they can't even get to it through with a smartphone. And we figure we can get comfortably 17 people, max 20. But that's it. And you know, a lot of people are going to want to be right there. They won't want to be sitting from home because you got both camps. And that's where those, for the larger group, we want them to go over to the transportation center. And then between both systems, Georgiana and Victor will have it set up so that the people here can participate along with people at home, along with people at the transportation center. And the presenters, probably attorneys, and whoever else is there will be at the transportation center. We would be at the transportation center. So it's going to take a lot of coordination to get this done, but we've got to move quickly. As Victor's indicated to us, I think, what was it, your Black Magic card? I think you referred to it, or just a Magic card?
There's several components of this system that are hard to obtain at the present moment due to the demand for the HDSDI capture card as well as the HDSDI pan-tilt zoom camera systems. The last time I checked, they are available, they are in stock, but I can't predict the future.
Yeah. And
it's difficult because if one of those components is unavailable, it renders the rest of the system useless.
And the difficulty for us, David, is the timeline that we just discussed and getting this all put together. We don't know when that public hearing will be, but we'd like to get this all up and tested.
Spent technically by October 15th. Encumbered. Well,
yes.
Know what you're going to spend it on and
right.
Spent by the end of the year.
But we need to get it approved so he can get the information. You recall when we put the backup generator in and we had to get the, I don't recall, was it the transfer switch or just the panel box that had to be changed?
Switch. The
switch, that we ran into the same thing where the manufacturer had that manufactured in Mexico, and because of COVID and things getting shut down, it got delayed getting the replacement in and caused an awful lot of frustration. So we were going to discuss more detail later, but I didn't want to hold Victor up here all night as we go through this. So we're going to go through, I think there's 18 items listed right now of potential use of the funds that we've identified at this point. We do not have the prosecutor's opinion on all those items yet because this has all been being worked on behind the scenes since our last meeting. Okay. Was there anything else for Victor?
No, I have nothing. I said my...
I do have one other thing, Kevin. I don't know on the cameras for the yard waste recycling, and by the way, we'll cover that, and Jerry has approved that. But you have no power over there, right?
Correct.
So these would all be battery operated.
The system I'm looking at installing for across the street would be a solar-powered system.
Okay.
And so we would have, we would need to install a few telephone poles, and on one of those poles we would have a battery box with several deep cycle batteries and several hundred watts of solar panels. It is possible that you could have one or more cameras run off that same system in addition to a wireless transmitter that would send the signal from across the street to this building.
And it would definitely have to come here. Now I'm going to ask you the thing that, Victor, I didn't have a chance to discuss this with Kevin, but do any of these have audio capability with two-way communication?
There are different things you can do. Most of the time they don't have microphones built in, although you can add those as an external device. They do have alarm outputs, and so it would be technically possible to add an external speaker or a siren if that's something you wanted as well.
Yeah, they'd have to be external. I know some of the cameras that are available that have their own mic on them, sometimes it doesn't transmit distance, and it's also not, it'd be hard to understand, especially if it's way up on a pole, but it'd almost have to be separate. The only reason I bring that up is because we have, you know, Kevin's guys are normally out on the roads. You know, they're only challenging people in the past if they happen to be here and see them, or see the trucks and trailers coming in, or see people carrying in concrete. But we do have, for some hours, we have people in the office, and if we can have them just tap in where they've just got it running, and then if there's a way, just like you get the audible sound that, hey, you've got new mail, is, hey, somebody's driven in there, and so now I glance at the screen and take a look and just, you know, hit the button that says, hi, you there in the red Ford pickup, are you an Amherst Township resident? Of course they're going to say yes, and my next question is going to be, can you tell me where you live? And they don't have to respond, but generally they're going to say, I live wherever. And it's okay, it's, that's fine, I see you've dumped the right stuff, but if you put down stuff you're not supposed to dump, by the way, that's one of the items that's not prohibited here, so kindly put it back in your truck and take it with you, versus us finding out after the fact. So I mean, that would be the way we'd want to use it, just so if you can start thinking about that. And I know this is kind of a surprise, Kevin, but this is all happening, you know, too quickly. And I couldn't catch you. I know when we were here the other day, you took Victor, you know, and were running and gunning. I mean, you were moving too fast for me to catch up.
That information is new, but your request should be able to, I can accommodate those requests. One of the ways is using a tablet or a smartphone. It has that two-way capability where the microphone's already built in, and you can have an app and you can press the button and talk through that. There may be a way to do it with the physical recorder as well. The system would send its digital information across the wireless transmitter back to this building, which would then have the main NVR recorder, which controls the cameras and stores the digital video.
Okay. Yeah, well, we definitely would have to have it stored too, because you know, most of the prohibitive stuff is going to be dropped off after hours. I mean, we've had things where people drop it off in front of the gate. They don't even go to the back because it just gets dropped.
And so if what you just said is true, then we may want to look at multiple cameras.
Unless you're monitoring that 24/7, you may or may not catch somebody to say something to them. You know,
correct, David.
If you catch somebody and they're back there and you can talk to them and say, hey, that stuff's not good, you need to take it out of there. We don't take concrete, or we don't take treated lumber back there. So, you know, you have to take that out if you catch them. But
well, David, it's just like these masks. These masks aren't perfect. They don't protect you, but they help everybody else because they reduce the probability of these heavy droplets that carry the virus going out. But people don't wear them all the time like I'm talking here. So it's just to reduce the probability. We've got times when people are definitely here, they definitely can monitor it, or they can see it on their cell phone. So that takes that chunk of time out of there. The next thing we have, we're recording it. So as long as the video is good enough to capture the vehicle, the individual, and if we can get a license number, we can check after the fact. And, you know, it's run the tape. It's hard for somebody to say that wasn't me. Well, that's your vehicle, isn't it? That's your stuff. And from now on, instead of our residents having to pay to have that taken care of, the individual that violated the regulations, which are posted on a sign over there, can take care of it. So, I mean, that's the situation. So some of it, yes, will have to be after the fact. Some will be right there live. Yes, George.
Wouldn't that be a more secure way of confronting somebody rather than
Oh,
person?
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
And not just for safety, but as we indicated to the prosecutor, was trying to keep separation. I mean, that's the whole thing with it. We canceled dumpster days, and now we want to run it this next time, and that will come up. We're kind of getting further along in the meeting, but where Kevin's going to look at just outsourcing that. Not that someone else can't catch it, but it's not our employees, because we can't risk one person gets it here. You know, the health department's going to tell everybody here they have to quarantine. How do we continue to run an operation if we've got to send everybody out? We don't have backup. But
how detailed are those cameras? Can they catch a plate pretty easily?
Well, there's several things that go into license plate recognition. You have the megapixel rating of the camera, which is just the sheer number of pixels in the image. The more important one would probably be the zoom capability of that camera. You would want one that can capture a close-up location. When I was working with Kevin, we looked at the driveway as a potential choke point. So where the gate is the narrowest point of entry. And so even if you wouldn't be able to identify the license plate of the car that's dumping the pile, you would be able to check the other camera for the same vehicle coming and going. And hopefully, because you have the front and the rear of that vehicle, you would be able to get a plate off of it. At nighttime, it becomes more difficult, but I believe Kevin said the gate closes. License plates are highly reflective, and there are cameras that are designed in order to capture that. They use a highlight suppression technology, which basically would reduce the glare from the headlights and the plate itself in order to capture the numbers. Those cameras are several magnitudes of more expense. I don't think for that extra 5% that you would get out of it, it's worth the expense personally.
and at that point, we just turn it over to the environmental crimes unit. So, but yeah, it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't want to elongate the meeting, but since COVID funds have been approved by our legal counsel to pay for this, wouldn't it not be a prudent opportunity to get electric over there using these COVID funds?
And that's one of the questions, and it really comes down to what the equipment requires, what's best.
And I guess maybe this is something you need to discuss amongst yourselves, is whether or not that surveillance application is a separate project, and perhaps the funding for that would be different than what we're talking about in this room for the video conferencing.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm just thinking of electric for the specific use of the cameras, but also additional security issues like a light at night to light up that gate if there is an emergency, or if there is a fire back there and we have to open that gate at night. Those kind of things. But for the electric, is the electric back there, would it make the cameras rather than solar powered? If they were electric, would that be save us some money?
Yes, it would. If I didn't have to install a battery solar powered system, it could save you considerable chunk of the change that's spent on that project.
Which then could be used to take the electric back there.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, it's a thought, and like I say, I'm not going to spend any more time discussing that at this point, but I do think we need to look at that if COVID monies are approved for that system.
Yeah, I guess the question would be how COVID directly impacted that need.
Yeah.
You know, the video conferencing system, I think, is clear and present, but I am not sure about the surveillance.
But once again, we do have a legal opinion from our prosecuting attorney that says that that is approved. So, but anyhow, enough said.
And the way we've got it, just so you're aware, Victor, is that in the past, you physically would have had a person go over there.
I see.
Okay? We don't want
preventing
that.
contact.
We told them, don't challenge anybody, don't go over there.
Okay.
I mean, that
I was not aware of that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, any other questions? Chris? All right, Victor, we appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for helping us.
Okay, and Denny, you want to introduce our other guest here?
I'd like to introduce Dave Richards, who is the current CEO of Life Care. I called him today, asked him if he could come. He quickly said he would. He's been very supportive, very helpful in many ways to our whole ambulance district. And though I miss Herb, I appreciate Dave very much and the fact he's stepped into the shoes and doing a good job. Dave Richards, please.
Thank you, Denny. I appreciate that. You know, I don't miss Herb. He still comes and visits me about 3 times a week, so it's usually just for a cup of coffee. So, but we still do connect on a regular basis, and I'm very happy to be here and trying to look forward to how we make things better for everybody during this very challenging time for us and our communities. You know, obviously, we're all going through a bit of stress. Things seem better, but I don't think we're anywhere out of the woods yet. Just based on what I hear and what I see and what I think our organization has gone through too. So we're here to help where we can and see where we can do some great things together. So it's exciting to know that you guys have been recipients of some funding to help to mitigate some of the costs and some of the things that potentially could be done to help with the current pandemic and just to make our systems better. I guess that's what we're here to talk about today.
It is, Dave. So everyone's aware, one of the options that the township has, and really all the communities do, is what they call sub-grant of these funds. I mean, you can even use them for any private business to help them, but what we're looking at is Life Care is the service provider selected by our Sandstone Joint Ambulance District, which includes the city of Amherst and the village of South Amherst. And just as we had all worked together on the Lucas devices to get those grant funds available, as we're looking at the same thing, how can we best serve our own residents in utilizing these funds versus giving them to some other community? And that's where Life Care comes to mind, but we needed to talk with you as to, because it still has to be meeting those 3 conditions I had read earlier, is does Life Care have that need? And then what we'll do is, working with the city and the village, look at all of us proportionally providing the funding, and there'd have to be a sub-grant agreement as far as funding those, but realize the timeline has to be, as it stands right now, encumbered by the middle of October and spent this year.
Yeah, it's a tight timeline to
yes.
get all your ducks in a row. You know, I was taking some notes because obviously we've had increased expenses in a number of different categories, and then there's a want list of things that you would hope to get to, and I think that's what we can talk about, and where the monies can be spent. You know, one of the biggest things that we hope we're doing a good job on, but there are other things out there that we haven't pulled the trigger on, are some of the cleaning devices that go into ambulances for the types of ultraviolet cleaning. They almost look like bug lights,
Right.
And they stay hanging there for a period of time, an hour or so, and they say that the light cleans 90% of the particles, out of the air and the surfaces within there. We haven't purchased one yet. Actually, I knew that they did that down at Central Wayne County Ambulance District. Jimmy Ward got a couple of funding grants from his foundation at Mercy Hospital and was able to do that. And I read it in the paper, and I thought that was a great thing to put on our list of potential things that we could get to. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's one of the things I thought would be a good idea to explore. Obviously, we support the Sandstone District with 2 ambulances out of our facility in Amherst, downtown. And those 2 would be the ones that would be the recipients. We only need one between the 2 of them because you would just separate the 2. We have a cleaning device that we utilize in both Lorraine and Elyria, and it's actually what we call this is a different device, but it's the same idea. It's a cleaning mechanism. It's actually called a flogger. Yeah. And you put those in there, and they actually go in for a 24-hour cycle where they run through a special solution that actually just decontaminates every surface within there, and then it comes out and you put it in the next vehicle. We have one of those devices right now that we swap between our 2 biggest facilities, but we don't have one per se in the Amherst, even though we have done those trucks before. They're not on the cycles that the other trucks are on to get that type of cleaning. So that was something that I had thought was worth the discussion. And I've already done some homework on it, so I know some of the details behind it, so I can share that with the group via email. I didn't come really prepared to present those kind of things. I think this is more of a general discussion.
It is. It's and we haven't. I had a light discussion with Mayor Costello on this. I have not talked with Mayor Lashinsky, but I'm sure they'll all be interested in, especially if the House approves this 3rd version that's coming out. I believe the village was using a new HVAC system that would have taken their initial funds, but this next group is probably going to be double what they originally received. Okay. And, so that being the case, I think everyone will have an interest in getting this done. But I think with the township, even if they don't, I would suspect that my fellow trustees would even agree we'll just do it ourselves if we don't have it. We don't have a large staff here, so it's not like, and the village doesn't either, but the city has a larger staff, and I know with them having sent people home and just being on a call basis, they're using a lot of their funding to help cover those wages in that period of time. But if you look at, and Georgianne, make sure Dave has the full packet, which has all the documentation, but you may already be aware of these requirements. But the real key is going to be the separate documents I gave you, the sub-grant information, and the Office of Budget Management gave us, for Ohio, gave us a, we could call it Appendix A, but a sample basic sub-grant agreement format to fill out. And again, keep in mind some of those project dates that are indicated there. Let's see. Those will still be okay. The one might change from December 28th to December 30th. I think that's the only date because the other intermediate date doesn't matter. That's just an internal administration of the funds to get redistributed. But we would have to have that type of agreement, and I don't know if it's better to go with just a single political entity versus all of them, or if we have our agreement from the Sandstone Joint Ambulance District, so we're providing the funds to them and they're providing the light care, but I'll let Denny work that out when you've come together with, hey, here's the specific item, here's what the costs are, including installation, a whole bit, so put in a specific request, and then we can move on that. Okay.
It's ideal. A couple of the other things I think is really exciting for our whole area, which includes the Sandstone District, and this is one thing that Life Care is championing for this fall. We're doing an ET3 project with the CMS, which is Medicare and Medicaid. Mm-hmm. That project allows us to do home visits with the telemedicine piece to our trucks. To me, I think it's revolutionary because you think about the area that you guys service out here and how rural it is. with us being mobile, we're able to take a physician or a specialist right to someone's home to get counsel. A lot of that's going on right now. It's not being paid like it should be. Certainly they're doing it out of necessity. We were one of 5 people selected in the state of Ohio, and we were one of 200 people selected in the United States of America to do this project. It's a 5-year pilot program that's going to allow us to be able to offer the service to our entire service area. So one of the things that I thought of during this thought process is, keeping people in their homes is a safe place to take care of people. Taking them to an ER can be a dangerous place because of the things that they can be exposed to, and the million ways that they can die because of the things that they're exposed to. So the home care piece of what COVID has brought us is probably here to stay. And what it does is it takes a physician that makes it more productive because he can do 5 telehealths while he can do 1 office visit. He can really just kind of do more with less. We're going to be outfitting our truck with a lot of equipment to do that, and I don't know if that's an opportunity for us to look at that potential.
That definitely is. I wasn't aware that, I never even thought about that with the emergency medical service, but that makes sense because the Office of Budget Management spells that out directly. And I know that our own congressman was just in the area here a few weeks ago, and it was more the medical professionals, not for ambulance service, but also asking for the telemedicine and the Medicaid reimbursement from a state and federal level, but they need the feds to agree before the state will to make this on a continual basis versus just this emergency situation. Just that it's a more effective way
to treat people.
To treat them, and as long as it's optional for those that want to come in or don't have the technology at home, that comes in. But now it makes it easier as far as the scheduling, versus having them queue them up in a room just so that you're more effectively using your medical service. Well, you don't have to do that if you don't have as many coming in because you're queuing them up now to meet in their home, and just those that either want the physical presence or don't have the technical ability to do it can come into the office.
So we become the extender of the physician that's on the screen. So our people will be able to touch and monitor and feel and do all the interventions being asked of them. They can transmit data through monitoring systems, temperature, glucose, other things. The other piece that this opens the door up to is what's called paramedicine. So now this is preemptive. Rather than being a emergent care, which is what we're talking about, what we do, this becomes follow-up care. So when somebody gets discharged from the hospital, they're usually sent to their home now because a very scary place for them to go is to nursing homes. So they get sent to their homes. So we can be an extension of the follow-up care for those individuals for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks while they're supposed to be taking their meds, while they're supposed to be going to rehab, while they're supposed to be getting their blood pressure read and other things monitored throughout their day to day. And because we're mobile and we know where they live, we can get there very easily to do that follow-up care. So that's another extension of this program that can actually add some real value to the communities, because now if you're sent home and you're being healing in your own home, studies have shown that that's the best place to heal, and it's the safest place to heal too.
Yeah, and I quickly concur with Neil's astute observation. This will definitely be COVID approved, definitely. But you said, if I may, just re-ask this question or ask this question, that you were one of 5 in the whole state of Ohio?
That's correct. The other, couple of them, Rexville Fire was another one, North Central EMS is another. Now, there's 2 types of programs here. When you talk about telemedicine, remember, physicians who usually have scheduled appointments are doing telemedicine. That's the telemedicine when you hear at the national level that they're trying to make sure stays in place with all the things going on. What we're talking about in this ET3 process is the 911 call comes in and we go lights and sirens as fast as we can to the individual. When we get there and it's not serious and we don't need to take them to the ER, we can take care of them in their home. So let's say they have a low blood sugar and we get there. You know, the only way we really get paid right now is to transport them.
Right.
So what they're incentivizing us to do is don't transport them if they don't need to be transported. Take care of them right there and take care of them in their home and get them to the right levels, and and then we'll pay you for that visit. So that's the piece that we're talking about that we were selected by in the state of Ohio. The other piece to this that's very interesting is that when you go to somebody's house on a 911 call, they're allowing these pilot people to take those people to different locations. So I don't have to take this person to a 911 emergency room anymore. I can actually take them to their general practitioner, or I can take them to the Nord Center if they're having psychological or mental geriatric problems. Or I can take them, let's say they're having a drug or alcohol problem, I can take them to a sobering center or to get help at a different location. So I don't have to take them to where they're only going to get emergent care. I can take them to a more specialized.
And you would still be reimbursed for that?
Reimbursed, because right now, the only way that life care gets reimbursed is if we go to a 911 call and we actually physically take the patient to an ER. That's the only way we get paid. Now we have the option of treating them in place, if that's the best treatment of care, and you have to have a doctor sign off on that. Or we can take them to 9 to 12 different locations throughout the county other than the ER in order to get their care. You can take them to an urgent care like at Walgreens, where they can get an actual walk-in strep throat test because they have a fever and they have strep throat. So some of these things that present in ER really should never go there. And that's what the whole program is about, why Medicare is championing this program, because they're hoping that this is the model of the future, where companies like us are not motivated to take people from point A to point B. We're motivated for putting them in the best place to get their care, which could be their home or other specialized locations.
And in actuality, fully implemented and implemented effectively would save money.
Correct.
For the whole Medicare.
Plus that's your motivation.
Now, that's their interest.
That's their interest. I know their interest.
With that in mind, based on what Neil wants to achieve tonight, do you have enough info where you could develop a narrative and a request to present to the township, and making sure that you have critical data and as needed in there, and I'll be a point man and work with you and hand carry documents back or electronically transfer them, which would be preferable. How soon can you do this? We need it like yesterday.
I can have it for you. I don't want to oversell it. I got so many things going these days. I would have it for you by this time next week, if I could have that kind of time.
Okay. Well, can I ask?
Normally I would have said by the end of the week, but that's my standard response.
Yeah.
I'd rather give myself a little bit more buffer.
Yeah, and you want to try and get it
yeah.
pretty reasonable here, because then we've got to make sure we allocate the funds to make sure they're encumbered. Denny, can I ask you, when is the next Sandstone Joint Ambulance District?
We don't have a meeting set, and we haven't had a meeting. We've already had one or two this year, and ironically, the next point of business was to change our bylaws, so we're only meeting once a year. And that was, everybody was kind of on board with that. But I just have not followed through because of the COVID experience and the hesitancy to get together, but enough said.
You know, if we would have had, I just thought that it might have been easier for Dave if, instead of going to each community or us talking between
to go
them,
through the ambulance district?
Yeah.
Well, what I would do there is probably get 2 or 3 key people.
Can I make a suggestion? I can arrange a Zoom call and invite all of you.
That's probably better.
We'll come to the same point of digital meeting, and I'll present to you in a PowerPoint presentation exactly what I'm talking about, play with narrative pictures and estimated costs.
And that's the best way to do it, because that's where I was saying, had we had the capability already, you know, then we could.
But you can do that then, right there?
Yes, I can.
Well, then maybe we need the mayor of South Amherst, the fire chief. Well, you know all of them. You have all the contact data?
I'm pretty sure I do. I'll reach out to you, though, in the next 24 hours to kind of run down and make sure that it hasn't changed.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of it is we don't know the scope. Since you've added a new dimension we weren't even thinking about here with the telemedicine, is what that scope is, but there's 3 communities in the district that are all receiving fundings at different levels, and this might be the appropriate allocation. I think whereas no one knew for sure on this third one what was going to happen. You know, it's now a definite, well, not yet, when the House passes it. And that's going to put people on even shorter time frame. So if we're already prepared for the ambulance district, we can move quicker and decide, you know, even what do we need to do in that legislation. But for sure we'll need these sub-grant agreements. And even though we're a member of the district, you know, it's not the
sub-grant has to come between the Sandstone district and Lake County.
It may, but the way these COVID funds are, it might have to be the individual community, and that's why I don't know if we can go direct or if we have to go between us and the district, which then goes to Life Care.
Yeah.
So in other words, you're providing what's needed. We have Sandstone Joint Ambulance District has a sub-grant agreement with Amherst Township, the village of South Amherst, and the city of Amherst. Mm-hmm. You know, but ultimately, the equipment or the, you know, is going to be at Life Care facilities.
Okay, so you said this time next week, so next Tuesday, which is of course the 15th.
Yes.
And we'll stay in touch. You're going to be in touch with me
tomorrow.
In
the next 24 hours, I'll give you tomorrow. I'll give you a call, and I just want to make sure I have the right contact people, and then I'll put a floater out there to see what kind of days work next week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to see if I can't corral everybody into one place one time and run through it. I probably wouldn't need more than 15 minutes to half an hour to really kind of squeeze it in. Make it happen in the evening, midday, anything. I can make it work.
Okay. Well, you have my cell, of course, and I'm easily reached. Neil, does that take care of what you wanted to?
It does. You didn't have any questions of David, did you have?
No.
Okay.
Just so I understand correctly, what we're looking at is a purchase of a disinfecting device?
And also telemedicine, both.
Okay.
Okay, and it could be whatever. I mean, I'm going to let Dave open it up to creativity on what will help all the residents within the Sandstone Joint Ambulance District.
One of the, of course, you've got the Cadillac versions versus the Escort version. So the Cadillac versions are these huge boxes with all the equipment that are attached digits. I mean, they're amazing. They put their six-figure type of number, where they are. They're actually the physical location, taking them into a person's house and setting it up, and you can actually. I think that's overkill. But there are versions within that really are pretty neat. I'll present a couple of them so you can see what we're talking about. And then sometimes I even gravitate towards let's just do it as simple as we can, and then we can grow from there. You know, if it becomes an easy process and it really starts to take hold, that's when you double down and look at next year's cost and trying to bring some more of the bells and whistles into it. I always hate throwing a ton of money at something and then it gets underutilized. And you're sitting there
right.
Thinking, why'd you spend all that money and you only get like 4 calls a month? You know, but if you do it, then you're getting 15 calls every week. And you're saying, well, I wish I would have spent more so that we don't, we're not choking on it. And that's just kind of how private business always approaches things. Undersell it, overutilize it, and then just make adjustments as you go.
Well, just so you're aware, because you service many other areas, in between Lorraine and Elyria, they're going to be seeing the same third round. I don't know which way they'll go. I know Elyria, theirs got pretty testy in their distribution and played out in the papers, but.
I submitted, one of the things that I did with Mayor Whitfield, they asked for funding for additional expenses that we've had over the course of the last 6 months. And what I ended up doing for the Elyria district is I counted up all the masks and gowns and face shields and N95s. Then we had additional disinfectants and cleaning sprayer bottles. So we had a whole host of things that I divided up equally, and I sent it in for a reimbursement proposal to the city of Elyria for some of their funds. Those being, Elyria and Lorraine are obviously high utilized systems that use a lot of that.
And you do serve both communities.
Right.
Yeah, but you might want to, in physically outfitting the vehicles.
Yes.
You know,
See what they have.
There's the advantage of having all vehicles because vehicles get moved around when
Right.
one's utilized. You know, it may not just be the two that are dedicated to our district. It may be a different vehicle that's coming in.
I see your point. So really kind of open the scope of
Yeah,
the whole
I would
fleet into-
talk with your other customers and since they'll be getting this, because you don't want, like, I saw what happened to Elyria. I think it might have just gotten missed. They missed Elyria courts, and the court said, hey, wait a minute. You're giving this out to community interest and whatnot, and we've had the court shut down and doing all these modifications. You gave us zero funding. And they did adjust things later, but, you know, it just makes it more difficult when you do that, because that means the funding came from somebody else that was counting on it. Okay, so maybe you approach the mayor ahead of time of both communities to see what they might be considering here. Okay?
The concepts that you brought forth tonight, David, are critical. I see them in that context. I'll make myself available to you whenever. Because if this does go through, we can get these monies, I want to see this happen. That would be a significant move ahead and improve the safety for everyone in our area, okay?
This is a classic example of life serving you lemons, right? What they do with it. So ideally, we would all vote to be out of this and back to where we were last year. This
Right.
time. But I think that when you start to devise a system of health and welfare of communities that you can build it around what we're talking about. Now we've raised the bar of the standard of what you think you want your people to have in terms of a provider of emergent services or care in the home. And that's how I'm viewing this as an opportunity for us to raise the bar for everybody that we serve.
There's actually some good things that have come out of this.
Good. That's how I see it too.
I'll look forward to hear from you, David, and I thank you for coming tonight. It was crucial that you were here, and I thank you for that, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you,
I'll look
David.
forward to hear from you tomorrow.
Okay, we're going to move back in and try and get this more organized on the agenda. We do have a resolution here to amend the 2020 budget due to the receipt of the second disbursement of the coronavirus relief funds pursuant to House Bill 481. I'm not going to go through all the whereases, but the let's see, the last one, whereas the Amherst Township Board of Trustees received the second coronavirus relief fund distribution of $38,766.22 on or about September 1st, 2020 from Lorraine County Auditor as the township's apportionment of the additional $175 million released via the Ohio Controlling Board and the Ohio Office of Budget Management. Now therefore be it resolved by the trustees of the Township of Amherst, Section 1, the Board of Trustees of Amherst Township amends the 2020 township budget to account for the $38,766.22 Lorraine County coronavirus relief distribution and affirms that all funds received from the Lorraine County coronavirus relief distribution fund pursuant to House Bill 481 will be expended only to cover the costs of the township consistent with the requirements of Section 5001 of the CARES Act as described in 42 U.S.C. 601D and any applicable regulation and guidance only to cover expenses that, and these are the same three items I had read before, I'm not going to go through that. Furthermore, in compliance with House Bill 481, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Amherst Township that the Amherst Township Fiscal Officer take all necessary action to that on or before October 15, 2020, pay any unencumbered balance of money in the Amherst Township Local Coronavirus Relief Fund to Lorraine County Treasurer, and on or before December 28, 2020, pay the balance of any money in Amherst Township's Local Coronavirus Relief Fund to the State Treasury in a manner prescribed by the Director of the Ohio Office of Budget Management, and 3, provide any information related to any payment received under House Bill 481 to the Director of the Ohio Office of Budget Management as requested. The rest is boilerplate.
And I will second that motion.
And then just one other thing, just so we're aware, we know those dates may change, but we'll have to amend our budget if and when that third round of coronavirus relief funds is made available, depending upon what the House action is. Any other discussion? All right, roll call, Chris, when you're ready.
Lynch?
Yes?
Abraham?
Yes.
Euring?
Yes.
And the number on that, Chris?
9-3.
10-3?
9-3?
9-3, I'm sorry.
9-3.
Okay, the next two items are just communications here, but I'm going to hold off. You've got these to read. I guess the first communication that's dated August 28th, that 114,000 CARE Act funds, that's actually, you see I penciled over that. The correct value is 116,298. The next page was just the notice to the prosecutor's office as far as some of the items we intended to encumber funds on and to get his written opinion on, and all the details on that. But read that at your leisure. Okay, the second item, and it's titled CARES Act Fund Expenditures. One is repair, sealing, striping of Amherst Township walking and biking trail, parking lot and entry drive, and a contract for the October 1st, 2020 dumpster days. Just so that we don't forget as we move forward, we currently have our internal policy has a competitive bidding policy threshold of $15,000. What that means is the statute identifies certain things that we have to go out for public bid, but usually that threshold is around $50,000. Internally, we have a lower threshold, and this did come up at our last meeting because Kevin had asked about getting some additional concrete work done, and the trustees had asked for the additional quote since it was above $15,000. I just want to caution that due to the limited time frame available in encumbering the coronavirus relief fund monies and the waning days of good weather, is that as we move forward, particularly if there's any outside work, it might not be possible to get multiple quotes for the items that exceed the Amherst Township internal competitive bidding policy threshold of $15,000. And that's going to become more apparent as we move forward. And we know that there's multiple communities contacting various suppliers, so I imagine there's a chance that it's taking longer to get answers back on bids, and yet we don't want to miss the opportunity, so we may have to have a motion here before we leave today to either adjust that threshold or have the mechanism of holding a special meeting quickly to address that. Now, in our current situation,
I would define this as an emergency, and the internal restriction we have is exactly that, internal.
it's just internal.
We're not bound by any law.
Well, we just got to make sure that if Kevin goes forward on something, we don't have people giving him lashes and second guessing what he did.
He knows where I'm at.
I can't get people to call me back. I've called him 2 or 3 times. But I have met with R.J. Griffith, and I might have a bid estimate right now for the park.
Okay.
To fix that, and to seal it and paint it. And I spoke with the estimator today to try and hurry him up. He's going to try and hurry up the office.
Okay. Yeah, because there you're dealing with weather too, in addition to these other restrictions.
They said that they could jump right on it.
Do you want to put this in the form of a motion where we just override, due to the emergency of the pandemic, the internal resolution?
And perhaps just in dealing with the CARES Act funding, because I don't see where it'll come up with anything else, but
I mean, I'll support that, whatever you want to do here, Neil. I know how difficult it is to get people to respond. I'm having
Well,
trouble on
if
the
you can only
private
get one,
sector.
we want 3 estimates, but if you can only get one, you can only get one. I mean,
Yeah.
if there's only one group,
And I'm gonna leave it up to his judgment completely, so he can expedite things.
yeah, I don't know if we need to override it. It's just if there's only one provider, there's only one provider, and that's it.
Right.
So do you want to pass a motion or not? Because I can make a motion real quick.
Why don't you make a motion, that way we have it as a matter of record.
All right, Chris, and most of this will be written in this email, so what I'm going to do is say, make a motion that due to the limited time frame available in encumbering of the coronavirus relief fund monies and the waning days of good weather and the difficulty in obtaining multiple quotes for items that might exceed the Amherst Township internal competitive bidding policy threshold of $15,000. That threshold be eliminated through the rest of calendar year 2020.
And as necessary in 2021, relative to the pandemic.
Or we might still have time for that. I'm just going based on what they've got with the current time frame.
All right.
And that what we'll do is default to the statutory thresholds in the Ohio Revised Code. You know, because there's still thresholds we have to meet.
And I'll
CARES Act funding.
Is that written somewhere in we default to the statutory?
No, that's not there. I just added that in there just so that this isn't a blanket check. It's just taking away our own internal policy, which is tighter than what the statute is.
Okay, so
Basically, we're gonna waive it for
default
the
to
CARES fund.
statutory thresholds
Correct.
of ORC.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes.
And that'll be 9-4.
That will be 9-4.
Okay, the next document that's titled July 16, 2020, Ohio Township Association Ideas for CARE Act Revenue. I just put that in there so you can see it because we're going to be talking some of these sub-grants. You see sub-granting of funds to health districts, fire and EMS districts, school districts, etc. for COVID expenses is an already approved item, and that's been discussed both with the Ohio Township Association of Risk Management, also in webinars with the Ohio Office of Budget Management. It can also be used as matching funds for COVID grants through FEMA, and that's where I had the discussion with the mayor in Amherst because you will see there's a document I gave you supplementary here that says Amherst Fire Department receives $70,000 grant. Don't know that'll apply for that one, but told the mayor he might want to consider it, but I wasn't sure where the Amherst Fire Department, who services Amherst Township, is in their FEMA grant application. But if they're receiving one within this time frame, they can use their coronavirus relief funds as matching funds in that. The other key is one of these items is equipping the township for social distancing requirements. So that's kind of general, which everything we've been talking about is trying to keep that distance. So just keep that in mind as you come up with other ideas. The key document we have is going to be this multi-page document. It says CARE Act Coronavirus Relief Fund Expenditure Planning. And you'll see that if the House approves this next funding release, as the Senate did, if they concur with the Senate bill, we will actually receive in 2020 $323,000. getting pretty close to our full revenue for our road budget. Exceeds our revenue for our fire and EMS. And I don't know that we're actually going to utilize this, and that's why we've got to look at our partners that also provide service, the residents of Amherst Township, as to how we might best utilize this funding.
What percentage of that, or what dollar amount of that can we subgrant?
We can subgrant all of it.
Well,
But
I'm thinking about, depending on where Dave's costs come in, that would be a good place to see.
Well, let's go through this and keep in mind the village and the city receive funds too. So, you know, we should all partner in this. And as I mentioned to Mayor Coslow, perhaps it's just proportional because it's not just the South Amherst district, it's also the fire district. But that's just, you know, that was just a preliminary discussion since this just came out last week as far as what the amounts were. He wasn't even aware of what they were receiving, so I had sent over the spreadsheet as to what the state has estimated at this point in time for potential revenue based on a per capita basis. But what we've tried to put together here is the items at this point that we know or estimating, and trust me, some of these estimates are off, but if you see, like, of these 18 that are listed so far, the generator installation, we know that 5,268, that's pretty much ironclad. And you'll see note 1 and in the next column. Well, if you go down to the last page, there are only 2 notes at this point in time on eligibility determination. One is Otarma Q&A from a 624 webinar and available on the Otarma e-library. And Chris, I'm going to need our password for that. I couldn't remember what it was. I tried using what Howard had given me before, but I was guessing wrong. But I did still have a document, but I wanted to see it on our e-library. But both Chris and Linda participate in that webinar. If it's a note 2, that means we've received a written opinion from the prosecutor's office. You see the Y, if it's complete, yes or no, so Y is yes and N is no. And I only put the Y's that are complete, so essentially blank is no. So if we run down this, we've got the generator, cleaning contract, no-touch soap, and towel dispensers. Those items have all been completed. Now, sanitizing products, masks, no-touch thermometer, those are there, but I didn't have what those numbers were.
Checks against that money yet?
Pardon?
She hasn't written any checks against this money yet, has she?
Chris will be putting it against these funds coming in, but the generator, have you paid that last bill? But see, she can readjust these things as far as what account they come from, because we're going back in time. So you see at the beginning, David, to your question, the generator, we pulled that up a year to get it done so that we had this available as an emergency shelter, but we weren't sure what was going on in terms of funding, and we didn't want to wait till the succeeding year where we thought we might get NOPEC funds and pay for it. So that was pulled up early. By doing that, that question was specifically asked, and they said yes. And doing that, that shows it wasn't budgeted. It was done so this could be used as an emergency shelter with COVID. So the project's complete, but it's going to require some accounting by Chris to get that paid for. Same thing with the cleaning contract. The no-touch soap dispensers, those, and Linda's keeping track of some of this, but she may have to tackle Kevin and Remy and the other guys. Realize when the inquiry was put in to get those, the supplier provided the material at no charge. So the only cost is the internal labor for dismount, discard, and remount. Okay, so there we'll have to get that. You know, I just put in to get an estimate here, going through the numbers, say 14 hours and a blended rate of roughly $30 an hour, $320 in labor. That $100 of material for a 6-month period, that's the different materials that are used in there versus, the foaming soap and whatnot, different towels. So again, it's not a huge amount. Even with that estimate, it's $420. Sanitizing products, no-touch thermometer. I didn't have those items, so you see it's showing $0, but those are already in place. The no-touch faucets, that's the estimate. We did pass a motion, 8320, approving that. That's $6,700. No-touch lighting, and this is where the question comes up. We never passed a motion on that, but should we, shouldn't we? This could be way down. That price could be off. Because now I see the switch plate we have in here actually has both the switch and a 120-volt ground fault circuit interrupter in it. I didn't realize that when I put this down here, but most of the cost, so that'll increase the material cost, but most of the cost would be installation, assuming that you actually had an electrician do it versus doing it yourself. So I put down $185, realize the switches back here are already no touch. So we're just talking these two up here. So that may be light, but I don't know. That's a question for the trustees. Do you want a motion for every single one of these?
No. No, we don't need to. They're just day-to-day expenses.
Okay.
Covered in the day-to-day operation of the township.
But the next thing,
moving too quick to do that, Neil.
And that's the issue, Denny. That's the point. So
yeah, and just make decisions, Neil. And I trust your judgment completely.
Okay.
I mean, this is what you've done in the private sector all your life. But anyhow.
Okay, the video equipment and digital storage that we discussed when Victor Edwards was here, engaging a technical consultant, technology systems integration to specify, procure, set up, and test video equipment, ancillary equipment, digital storage on a township YouTube channel to allow public viewing and/or participation in public hearings and at public meetings remotely when social distancing is not possible in person or in situations where the public cannot wear a mask. The system will facilitate fulfillment of public records requests without an in-person interaction by directing the request to the YouTube channel. Alternatively, the video recording can be copied to an appropriate storage media and mailed to the requester. All public records requests and communication can occur by phone and or township email. The following items will be procured. Now this is where we may have to make some changes because we already did pass motions. We had, at the time, we were estimating $475 for the 4-channel receiver and 4 handheld mics, and that was motion number 8420. But we added one wireless bell pack transmitter with a headset, a lapel mic, desktop microphone stand, mic clips, 5 of them, one of them a gooseneck, I assume that's up at the podium for presenters, and a rack-mounted power conditioner to protect the electronics. That brought the total, it's actually going to be under $800, correct, Georgianne, but I just wanted some cushion in there, is to reconsider motion 8420 and increase the not to exceed amount to $800.
Why don't you just make another motion and for all these miscellaneous, or 75 for the 4-channel receiver and microphones, and then just whatever of 325 or another 400 for this miscellaneous.
Well, we could, but this, this is the concern, David, and as we start going through these, you know, the 2 meetings ago, it was suggested we do a motion for each one of these. The concern is the time constraint.
No.
And as things change, as we move on, such as think about the discussion we just had with Dave Richards, how much that changed from what we thought it was going to be to what the potential is. The discussion we had with Victor for Kevin over here on the yard waste, what you thought it would be versus what it could be. So how do we give the flexibility to these guys that are out in the field? By the way, you're going to see where responsibilities have to be assigned to all this stuff.
Well, given the dollar amounts that we have to work with, I would trust the judgment of Georgie and Kevin and yourself, Neil, to make decisions based on realistic numbers. And I would not want it encumbered or restricted with a dollar amount. Just let's put the verbiage in there that gives you the discretionary decision process to put in the dollar amount you need to get the job done. Can we do that? Well, sure we can do that.
Right.
So if we're going to do a motion to supersede the last one, I'd like to build in the flexibility to give the decision makers the wherewithal to make decisions on the run and just do it.
Well, starting with 6 is the first time, but I don't want to assign responsibility to item 6 yet on the no-touch lighting because you'll see something else will come up. But the video equipment and digital storage, we're going to assign responsibility to Georgianne.
Yes.
I've already, though, in this allocation, I'm more trying to get what are we consuming out of the initial 116,000, knowing there might be another 207 coming. I want to see where do we stand. So that's, you know, you have to put estimates in, and some of them I don't even have numbers. So how about if we just assign responsibility, and you know, I guess we can even leave that at the 15,000 right now, Georgianne, but I don't want, you know, I think that should cover it. Okay.
Okay, I like it. Assign it to Georgie, not to exceed 15.
Right. And then now Kevin's just walked out, so we'll come to the walking, biking trail and dumpster days and yard waste the next 3 items are his. We'll wait till he comes back, because I know that yard waste camera, I wasn't aware with the 2 poles and what we just discussed. That is just cameras there. It's going to be way more than that.
And
oh yeah, we know we need that component, so that's getting separate then, because we need to get that mounted too. And just so the trustees are aware, Victor's recommending that flat screen would be right there below where the projector screen is. Kevin's verified this is all wood and studded. We would also have to pull a power receptacle there so we're not coming down to the floor with long cords. And then also for the HDMI cable to connect into here, so that'd be another receptacle. I think we have to employ an electrician, though. That's not something he does.
yes. And if I...
For the electric, yes. For the low voltage, the HDMI.
He can do that? Okay.
High voltage.
And this...
And if I might suggest, since Greg Christian did most of the work in here, I would go back to Greg as far as him doing it.
Okay.
It's just a thought based on, but I'll let Kevin make that decision.
Well, we're going to have to get him back in here because I want to...
Hey, Kevin?
He went to the restroom.
Okay, I don't want to put, because we'll see where he's going to get loaded up here, and that's why I want to try and distribute as much of this responsibility as we can. But whoever does this, we want to take care of the restroom at the same time.
Should we have a 2-minute break? do
All
coffee.
right, can we just take a short recess here then?
Yeah, do you need a motion or just recess?
We're just going to take a short 5-minute recess. Okay, we're back in the regular session. Okay, Kevin, if you have this multi-page document for the planning on the encumbering of the coronavirus relief funds, that the walking, biking path and trailhead, you know, you had mentioned you're soliciting quotes on that. That has been approved by the prosecutor. What I didn't know was what that amount's going to be. You know, I was going based on what we had, which in the past, when we had Plaza seal it, but internally you guys did all the crack sealing and we had no repairs. And I didn't have the number for the parking lot striping. So that number might be low, I expect it is, but as soon as you have a number, you know, if you can get us the best number you can, and hopefully people get back to you with these quotes.
I would expect it to have the number tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, because this particular one, we're running into difficulties with the timeline. Okay, but I'm going to mark that you're taking full responsibility on this one and getting this done.
Yep.
And that's 8.
Number 8. Then number 9 on the dumpster days with the external contract and revised signage. I want to mark that you also. You thought at the last meeting you might have someone in mind. I don't know if you've contacted anybody.
Yes, I have. And to have an operator, a machine, and 2 laborers would be $200 an hour, which at 3 days worth would be $4,800. So I'm sure it will come in under 5.
Okay. So that's
Who is it?
Baruch.
and you said you think it will be under 5,000, so 4,800 is pretty good.
Yeah, 8 hours a day.
And that's what we were figuring based on with you guys doing it, but getting someone outside and having their own equipment. Okay. So I'm marking that as you. Georgianne, I know Chris had sent basically what the county was using in the rules, but ours would have to be a little bit different because Georgianne's got to get this done for a newsletter article and let people know what's happening when they come in the website, yes. But maybe as far as, you know, as you're explaining the rules, make sure you at least communicate with Kevin, whether it's text, email, voice, whatever, so that the signage is also created. And just so we're all aware, keep in mind we're feeding this information back to Linda. She's got an Excel spreadsheet, which I didn't bring here tonight, which is much more detailed, trying to keep the accounting of all the costs. And then she can work with Chris, to David's point, as far as what accounts it comes out of, particularly items that were already spent before we had funds available, so that we can get those accounts, you know, replenished for our regular internal accounts. But that's all going to be required because eventually a report has to go to the Office of Budget Management, and we have to be prepared when our audit comes in, and at that time no one's going to remember all this detail. We're going to be on to other things. You know how an auditor starts asking about something that's a year or 2 ago, it's tough to recollect that without records. So always keep in mind to be contacting Linda with what's going on. Okay, the next one, the yard waste recycling center cameras. Kevin, you just heard the additional discussion on that. So that number obviously is way low. I just put a number in there just for cameras. And now there's the question, and I don't know, Denny, as far as power, how do you want to handle this as far as assignment of responsibility?
Well, Kevin, you tell me, since you're doing the cameras, You've already got a price on the power going over there.
Well, just to that gate, this will be a little bit different. Plus, the power all the way to the back. So, they'll definitely.
You want to take it all the way to the back for the cameras?
That's where the camera will go, so that'll have
Okay.
Or do a combination of the one up front at your choke point at the gate, and then use, though they're more expensive for the cameras because you have the solar panels and the battery backup. I mean, you have to use your judgment there, you know, on cost and feasibility. But if we want to have the ability to communicate with people there, you may need the power for the speakers. You know, I don't know how much the solar panel and the speakers will take more power than the camera will. So it's just something to look at, but when you get a rough numbers, you know, Linda will be collecting what the actuals are, but I'll need some just for budgetary purposes.
If it's not too much time, Kevin, it makes more sense from my perspective that you do it.
Well, from my perspective, it makes more sense that I do it as well.
Amen. Okay, we're in agreement.
Okay, well,
Okay. So Kevin for number 10.
11, this deep cleaning, that's probably not going to happen, and my estimate was way off. Linda is handling that.
So
And
Linda's handling 11?
she's handling 11. She already got one quote, which was so ridiculous, I'm not even going to mention the number, but I think what's happening is contractors are aware of what public entities are doing, and so, you know, it's like circling vultures. But we do know that the Department of Administrative Services has a contract, and that's what we want to look at, but she's contacted the supplier that the Department of Administrative Services awarded the bid to and hasn't received an response back from them. So hopefully that one comes back more reasonable. But Linda's going to handle that, but I know that number is going to go up. Okay, number 12, this is the one with the whether we have a license. Now, I put a Zoom license in there, and I put a low number because that's what Zoom is for 300 participants for, even though we don't know how long we need this, but that is for a year. But after reading through the information from the Office of Budget Management, they gave a list, let's see, I think I have it here, of who they recommend for your meetings and public hearings during this COVID time. And it actually is the Office of Budget Management through the Department of Administrative Services. And they've got Skype for Business Teams, which is a Microsoft product, WebEx Meetings and WebEx Events, which is Cisco, GoToMeetings, which and obviously I've used Skype, but not Skype for Business. GoToMeetings, which is Log Me In. I participated in GoToMeetings and other boards I'm on. Amazon, Chime Pro, not familiar with them from Amazon. Google Meet, I also in previous employment used Google Meet. And then there's also Adobe Connect offered by Adobe. Those are the ones they're recommending. They indicate that all of them have live streaming. They indicate the number of attendees, which would fit us for the public hearings we see coming up. None of them support YouTube Live, but I don't think we're concerned with doing things live. My concern is, and I'm hoping this is old information, they didn't put a date on this document. Obviously, it's all been since the coronavirus relief funds have been made available, but it says tools not recommended due to security concerns. Number one up there is Zoom. It says Zoom recently, well, recent when you don't have a date on here, came under fire for its security and privacy practices. The FBI released the following guidance, and they give you a link to that, and I started reading through that. And also they recommend against any free non-business class tools, as these products are not properly vetted and could pose a risk of information and security and privacy. Now, the first thing that the FBI talked about was if you had these Zoom meetings where someone could come in and they basically take over your meeting, they take control of it. And, you know, that could become a joke if you're having an official public hearing. But I know that Zoom had worked on improving that. They claim, though, you know, who believes, I think everyone's going to say this to their customer, that they corrected that. But I didn't see any update from the FBI, so I don't know. But just so we're all aware, if we end up using the county system, theirs is a Zoom platform. So I'm just pointing that out as we move forward, Georgianne, since you're going to be somewhat involved in this. You know, we're just going to have to dig into that a little bit more, and maybe Victor has some information on that. But the Department of Administrative Services is still, this document's still current on their website, is warning us away from the Zoom and directing to one of these other platforms. But just so the trustees are aware, that's going to be part of the overall video equipment. So Georgianne, I'm going to mark that. So I'll obviously be helping here. I want to mark that as you, since that goes hand in hand with the equipment. Okay, the next one, and this has not been discussed with the prosecutor, but in discussions with Linda Ashley and Chris Kish, we were just brainstorming different ideas, and it started about the table format inside the hall, whether we needed that or chairs, but I think we've got plenty for here. But that's springboarded in, well, what about the park as far as the picnic tables there and keeping those separated so that people aren't flooding down there and using it. Obviously they're not going to as the fall comes. We're going to go in the bad weather. But you know that at first most communities shut things down. We take ours off. You know, they didn't want you using playground equipment, didn't want you using park benches. That's kind of been backed off on. Since we don't know where this is going to go, though, and we do have these funds, is when we talked first, it went from additional picnic tables for people. Well, then you start running into, well, wait a minute, you guys didn't have to move them every time you cut the grass, and you really want those setting over an area, which then kills the grass. So then do you have them just on a pad or just stone poured, mulch poured, you know, if you want the cheap route. Then you get to the, well, maybe we put them on a concrete pad so that it's, you know, easy to maintain, cut, use. Then it springboards, well, maybe you need to have a shelter. We really need to determine if this can be an acceptable use of funds. But just accept, even if your prosecutor says yes, is he could still eventually be overruled. And in discussions with Jerry Innes, he said, just be prepared in that if it was something that was a benefit for your community and his opinion is overruled, that be prepared that you have the funding to cover that. This may be off a little bit, but we can't, with the timing, we can't wait till we get all these approvals. It's almost like we have to move forward quick. So, Kevin, I think I sent information to you, but I'm hoping, Denny, that if, you know, with your background, if you'd be willing to take point on this. Kevin's obviously going to have to show the area, you know, and the layout.
You mean the park picnic tables and shelter?
Yes.
Okay, I got it now.
And as far as sizing on this, it's 27 by 33. It doesn't have to be that size. You know, and they even sell prefab shelters, but looking at some of those, you still want something that looks good in the park and something that's low maintenance. So potentially we may still be with a wood structure, but maybe we want to look at the metal roofing versus the asphalt shingles for the long-term maintenance. But I appreciate that, Denny. And again, that's just a budgetary number that's in there. and realize our goal would be, and this is more covering it for the succeeding year, because you won't get this done quick enough in the current, quote, picnic weather. But planning for this, if we can have that where we can keep people spaced apart. I can tell you I was down at the Black River, I may call that Riverside, took a brother fishing on the river, and this was early in the pandemic, but you're already told to social distance. They had a nice shelter there, but they had all the tables right next to each other, and it was packed with people. I mean, it was unbelievable, and very few with masks. Few had masks, now most of them didn't, and I just couldn't believe it in what I saw. But ours are spaced out pretty good since we lost that one under the pavilion, but this would get another one to put it in there. Okay, the number 14, Denny, that's the one we just had the discussion with the Sandstone Joint Ambulance District sub-grant with Dave Richards. But I'm going to put your name down as a rep there.
I'm doing that already. I say will be doing that on the point of contact. So I have 13 and 14 thus far.
Okay, 15. This is one where, and it's somewhat what Dave talked about. I did not bring the documents. It's just too much. But I gave various government websites, predominantly the EPA websites here, and also the American Society for Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers for indoor air quality. And then some of the information there from those groups, and also the National Air Filtration Association. The EPA, particularly on their site, where they talk about the COVID-19, and they're saying, hey, just filtering or just air purifiers, you got to look at it as an overall system, that those are supplementing the other information you're doing. The difficulty we have here, and I did go and check, we've actually got 3 power plants in this facility. One from the original hall, and the 2 new ones that were put in place when we went through the expansion with the estate tax, when we used to receive the estate tax, and had those 2 large estate settlements. The original plant doesn't look like it brings in any outside air, and it looks like it's just circulating air from the inside, picking it up out of that old area, which isn't the way you usually want to go. The new plants do have outside air makeup coming in. What I don't know, I think do we just have the simple mesh filters for that, Kevin? Do you know what type of filtering is there?
Yeah, it's just a mesh filter.
Okay, and that really wouldn't suffice for the coronavirus. They predominantly recommend, there's different types of air cleaners, but their preference would be if you could get with the HEPA filter or a separate cleaning unit. Ours is all part of this. So I don't know that if that can be adjusted or not. And if it could, you're talking at least 2 and possibly 3, but the 2 that bring in the makeup air from the outside would be the ideal one. And modifying those, and then internally having the supplemented air purifiers, and there the Department of Administrative Services may have some, but this has to be a combo. If we had the area ones, I think Linda can work on that, but now we're talking about, as opposed to the portable that take up floor space, you probably want wall mounted. But you don't want them so high that you can't change, you can't maintain them and do filtering. And now think about it, you're talking about bringing in power. The furnaces, we really need somebody, and I don't know, is the contract with Ray Giddich?
Giddich would be who I would go to.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if this is something Remy can handle or not.
Well, he could handle it as far as getting the prices. And
that's what I'm thinking, working with the right people, because I don't know, I don't want Kevin getting burdened with everything, and that's going to be the problem here because of the short time frame.
Well, let's put Remy down.
If you want a portable air cleaner on a wall, is it portable?
Well, it probably isn't, but that's usually where you look them up at. So, yeah, David, I understand what you're talking about, but I was pretty late at night putting all this together, and as quickly as things change, so that's the biggest concern. We can scratch out portable, put wall mount.
Yeah. I'd have to get input from them. Put down Remy/Denny. I'll talk to Remy tomorrow.
And then as far as the wall mount purifiers, as Linda, I think, is already looking at that and trying to determine if they have them on the Department of Administrative Services. But yeah, some of it is whether it's technically feasible with the equipment we have. And that's where, even on all these various government sites I put, that's one of the, and also the society sites, one of the concerns is sometimes you can't adapt it, you have to change out the whole thing, and we probably wouldn't do that.
No, you should be able, within the cold air return, put a system.
And that would be nice if we could, Denny.
Yeah.
But
I think, I mean, I had my furnace upgraded because of getting rid of toxic agents and stuff that wind up in your ductwork through the construction process.
Mm-hmm.
Fiberglass insulation is one of them that winds up in your ductwork, and you want to pull all that out. But anyhow,
okay.
Let me put that down with Remy/Denny and see if I can get a realistic.
Okay.
Number one, find out engineering-wise if we can do it, and two, if we can do it, what the cost will be.
And then also, you'll have
And
to look
you
at,
have projected
well, this is going to,
16,000.
that's probably going to be low, but that's what I put in there now. Once I went up and looked at the actual units, you know, because I hadn't looked at them when I had done this, and I'm looking at, wow, these two have the makeup air coming in from the back, but I didn't see anything on this one, so covering the offices, the air purifiers would help, but, you know, as the EPA and even the various societies recommend, is you really try and bring in outside air, and they recognize that depending upon temperature and humidity conditions, that's not always feasible either, and we may not necessarily have dampers to adjust that either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it becomes quite intensive, and now you've got these time deadlines.
To satisfy COVID. And,
Yes. Yeah, but the HEPA filters would definitely work because they filter down to 0.3 microns. The COVID could be as small as 0.1, but again, as had the discussion with David, it's all probability. You know, it gets quite a bit of it, and then the air purifiers just supplement that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Let's go to, okay, 16 website signage. I didn't put anything down, but Georgianne, you know that's you, and Linda. Okay, the fire and EMS sub-grant. If you look at the additional supplemental information I gave you with these three documents hanging out here, you'll see the last one was from an article in September 2nd Chronicle, and it was more talking about the Amherst Fire Department getting the grant for the new Jaws of Life. But in there, Chief Wilhelm gives his wish list of the other items that he's going after and hoping to get grant funds for. Well, one of the key items that may comply, and I did have the discussions with Mayor Koslow today, is that it says, Wilhelm said he also wants to spend $27,000 to purchase what is essentially a giant washing machine that quickly decontaminates fire gear after use. Now, the chief was more concerned with the cancer as the major concern for firefighters. Machine would remove carcinogens from the equipment. The model could clean 60 helmets in an hour. In the same amount of time, it could wash 100 pair of gloves, 40 pair of boots, 14 sets of breathing gear. But what I discussed with, and then he talks about an ultrasonic cleaner for routine sanitizing a firefighter's mask. I discussed this with the mayor that, hey, you're going to be receiving this third round They've got an estimate now, but we're waiting on the House to take action, because the mayor said he pretty much has all his funding allocated. But this new round is going to give him, it's not quite double, it's over 400, I think it was $440,000. And I said with this one, since we can also sub-grant, we might look at this, but this is a small amount, because this is also going to benefit for our area. There's no reason why, even though we no longer have the contract with the village, they're still probably going to be the first one on mutual aid that comes in into our area. Amherst is already tied up, or it's a larger issue. We may have to have that discussion, but I just put that down there as an option. And since it's not appropriate for me to go directly to the fire chief, it's for the mayor to be thinking about this. But again, he's waiting to see what happens with this next round of funding. So just be aware of this, and since I have fire, I'll take care of dealing with that as it comes up. The next one, number 18, this might be a stretch because it's more tangentially a benefit to our residents. Is the court system we use is Overland courts for Amherst Township, as does the city. And the city of Amherst, I mean our neighbor in the city of Overland, but there's multiple communities use Overland courts. I wasn't sure if Judge Danuzzi had the needs there himself. I don't know that he would receive funds, because I'm assuming he's the same as Elyria Municipal Courts. They didn't receive funds directly. There were some grants they could apply for, but I know that created some initial conflict between the city of Elyria and their court system when no money was allocated to the courts. So this is one I wanted to hear from the trustees before I even make the call. Do you have objections if I contact Judge Januzzi just to see if there are needs there? I can't make any promise to him, but that, hey, do you have a need? We might have funding that could help here, but I would expect that the other communities that use this court, you know, if this becomes something substantial, also share in that.
Well, I guess I don't have an objection, but I'd like to allocate as much money as we can to Sandstone Joint Ambulance District, because I feel that that particular need, I don't want to rob money from there to put over.
Right.
That's my thought process. Until we see how this shakes out as far as dollars that they can use, and we do some, let's revisit this thought maybe in a week.
Okay, well, how about, can I still call Judge?
Well, sure, you can still call.
Again, I'm not going to promise anything because we don't know where it'll be, but if there's residual funds, if we can't get them directly to utilization for the benefit of our residents directly, I'd like to have something that even tangentially, since we use the courts, they hear it, versus giving it back for someone else to use that our residents get no benefit out of it.
No,
So this might be the allocation of last resort if there's any funds left.
Okay. In that context, please contact. It would be a good PR gesture anyhow.
Okay. And with that, as far as COVID, I just want, put on your thinking caps, and I'd really like to see where else this can be, and realize it's tough because we don't have the numbers. You can see of what I totaled up, and several of these, like for the fire, Sandstone Joint Ambulance, even the website, courts, I just put in 0 because there were no budget.
The Sandstone Joint Ambulance could be significant.
It could be.
It could get up into the 5 figures.
Keep in mind what we're going to have total, if the House concurs with the Senate, is 323.
Right.
What I show to this point, that bottom line number, is a little over $91,000.
Right.
But there's several items on here, no number's been put in. Okay.
And the sub-grant to Sandstone Joint Ambulance District is one of them.
Yes. I didn't put anything in there
Right.
because that's why I had it on the list. And since you're our rep on the Sandstone Joint Ambulance District, and I asked you.
And I will be working closely.
I did
with
put
the-
5,000 in on that one.
Yeah.
But again, that was more a placeholder, expecting there would be something there.
Mm-hmm.
And as Dave mentioned, they already got the foggers, which, believe it or not, if you saw the last version of the OTA News magazine that came out, I think last week, might have been the week before, guess what's being advertised in there? So again, people see, hey,
Right.
where is this stuff? But they've already got theirs, at least for the city of Lorraine. But if you've got anything, I'd really appreciate if people start bringing ideas forward, because you don't know what else can fall out. You also don't know what we might not get a written opinion saying, yes, I agree, that can be covered, because I prefer to have that information from the prosecutor's office. We can always go on our own and say, well, we disagree with what you said, but then we got to understand the risk, because you may have to pay that money back. So you don't want to leverage ourselves too far out.
I think if we can come up with a large amount of concrete items that, when I mean by concrete, items we know for sure that are slam dunk, that are going to be covered, and then we've got a handful that are gray, cover the ones we were sure of first, and see what's left over, then go to the gray, and then like, who was it, Jerry, or who said, just make sure that if something would happen, somebody would say no, there's money to cover it.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at this, David, it's pretty much in order of probability of being, well, not because there's website signage, I know that's covered, but you're right. So, just again, if you've got other ideas, though, because something may fall out, and I'd like to get as much benefit for our township residents as possible, because if we don't spend it, one of the other communities in Lorraine County is going to. And if we don't, and we probably, I told Jerry Innes, we probably wouldn't turn over the money, because if we have some left over, we're going to keep it in case we get a case of COVID. By the way, we've had multiple cases in Amherst Township, just so you're all aware of that. We don't publicize it like some of the other communities do, but the health department's regularly called every time there is a case in Amherst Township, and we've had only one death directly attributed to COVID here in Amherst Township. But if one of our employees gets it, we then got to pay somebody to cover the bare minimum services you would normally do, because our employees are all going to be out for a few weeks, in quarantine. So, okay, are we all done then on COVID?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 3 items to work on.
Okay. All right. I then want to move on, and I'm going to do things different here, Kevin. We'll get to you soon on the, actually we'll just go, since Linda and Remy aren't here, we'll go to you first for reports, and then
Neil,
we'll cover.
I did want, I'm sorry, you were talking about possibly reconsidering a motion. You guys decide not to do that?
Yeah, we decided not to
Okay.
do that.
Thank
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, proceed.
Okay, Kevin, do you have any report here on roads?
Yes. Okay, like I said, for the park, I am going to be receiving the estimate. I do plan on having it tomorrow for the walking path to fix the bad spots, to seal it, and to paint the parking spots there.
In that parking lot.
The parking lot. Paint the parking lot. Okay. Then I also had mentioned about having Chris Veru for dumpster days, for an operator, machine, 2 laborers. Chris has worked with us, so he's insured bonded, so we're all set there. He definitely is on board with that completely. We tore out a catch basin today on the corner of Foxtail and Peakwood. So that one's getting replaced. The mini grant catch basins are completed. They're taken care of. They're sent in. Danny, I have the pictures of the finished product and obviously the bill. We get that to Don.
Okay.
How's all good?
Yes, I'll be here in the morning, and we'll talk, and I'd like to hand Carrie it in, and that helps, that personal talk with Rosie, and sometimes I get a chance to talk with Don.
The two dugouts at the baseball field are completed with shingles, but there are still a little bit of trim work that needs to be done. Georgianne, I do have all the information and pictures for the after product. I have all the names, so I'll get that with you. I have an estimate here for $3,055, and that is, there are some trees that are blocking the lighting at the entrance of the park. This is also a large silver maple that is in the say pavilion area. It was in an area where I thought that what I was kind of understanding was where I was going to possibly set some picnic tables. But this tree is in bad shape, and it definitely needs to come down. Now, I know that this was something that just kind of popped up in order to pass this through the COVID, but I'm not even positive exactly if that's where picnic tables could go. I guess I thought that was a nice area for it, but I knew with this tree being there that was not going to be an ideal spot. Because I know it's a huge area, but there's only certain places that you can put picnic tables. I need to go forward though, at least with the trees that are in that park entranceway, to get those taken down.
Those you have to do anyway, and that's not COVID for sure.
Correct.
The other one will cover it all as one project, but yeah, you definitely on those.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to.
And that is a safety issue.
Yes, most definitely.
But the other one, if you work with Denny, who's going to work on trying to, determine on the pavilion, get estimates, and we'll work on putting together a narrative for the prosecutor to review, include that tree. So you'll probably want the estimate of pulling that out, if that has to come out in order to locate the area for people of social distance.
No. The trees by the entrance, are we talking the drive entrance?
Yes.
And that's up by the road, right?
There is some up by the road that needs to be a little bit trimmed, but there's trees that are down by the entrance of the parking lot that is blocking the light that is right there by that shed, and it's kind of even over that shed.
Okay.
It's definitely bad.
That's on our property then?
Yes.
I understand now.
So you're going to go ahead and give Edwards a go-ahead to do that?
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Plus get the quote on the other tree.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, we just did another round, or we are in the process of doing another round of roadside mowing as well, let alone now that we did even get some more rain. So everything's back to growing regularly. So mowing is at full capacity. Other than that, everything. We just received. We still have one light bar that is out for the new van. Otherwise, we do have all the lights in. They're not in place, but we do have the new light system in for the band. That's kind of been a side deal. We've been very busy with everything else. So the band kind of put up and on to the side there a little bit, waiting for parts and things of that nature.
But you're doing all the installation in-house?
Yes.
Outstanding.
And you notice too, Kevin, we haven't talked about foggers for our equipment. We haven't talked UV lighting because it's just always the same guys using it. We're not transporting the public. I don't see us spending money there and doing it. I just want you to be aware of that because I know some other communities are getting that and cleaning their equipment. But to David made the point at our previous meeting, we want something that we're going to continue to use, not something you're just spending it for this immediacy and then it's not used anymore. The reality is you wouldn't be using it in the future. So you guys, the best thing is your own personal protection, wash your hands. I mean, you know what you have to do.
Absolutely.
Okay, are there any other questions for Kevin? If not,
Do you have anything else, Kevin?
No,
Okay.
we're good.
I have no other questions.
okay, then I want to move on. This does deal with Kevin. You've got in your packet, I have the schedule printed out for the Round 35 schedule for the Ohio Public Works Commission. The key date we're facing right now is November 6th as the applications are due to the engineer's office. And at the last trustee meeting, we talked about having a work session to go through this to make sure that everybody's on board with what we're doing. And after looking at the demands of the COVID issue, the coronavirus issue, and also the funding and trying to obtain these quotes and maintaining this information, and then recognizing we're going to have the application for the next stormwater grant coming in. We're going to have to, and we got to get that planning going. We're going to have, though we won't know until probably November, December, if there's a NOPEC Powering Our Communities grant. We got to plan for that coming up. I think there was a third item which is now escaping me, but all of this is going to be happening here at the end of the year. So I thought it's going to be real tough to be having a meeting to discuss OPWC projects. On top of that, at the last meeting, I talked about for Dewey Road, which we said would be the one we'd be for sure applying for, and also some additional concrete work, specifically Moss Canyon in the valley, and that's one we applied for before, and we weren't successful, but we were right there on the edge on approval. Is I decided to take the liberty of putting together the resolutions to go forward with this, and what I'm going to ask is that we have Linda actually put together the final details on the grant. She'll have to work with you, Kevin. But there's several items here that on the Dewey Road specifically come into play. One, I already talked with Mayor Costello about a cooperative agreement with Amherst, and that because of available funding, we can't do the whole road all at once, which appears back, the last time this road was done was in 1996 for the resurfacing. And at that time, the township was able to do the whole road. The way costs are now, we're talking about doing half of it. Basically, and the one I chose, Kevin, that I put on here without consulting you, because I know it's tough and sometimes miscommunicate on this, and I don't want you to take away from your time. It looked like the portion from Middle Ridge up to Ackerman was the one in the worst shape. So that's the one I put on first. And we will get, there's also, and if you guys want, I had these printed out with the intention of doing this at a work session, which now I'm going to say for road projects we're probably not going to have. Is there are new, there's a new methodology we have to comply with. And when I spoke with Bob Fiber, the reason was the new director of the Ohio Public Works Commission indicated that they wanted this changed. So they want, even though they've been using it for almost 20 years, other than the one change on taking loans, they went ahead and changed it. But what's that mean to us? Well, one of them is on the loan component. They got much more specific as to where you get breaks, whereas before we found out if we took any loan component and we had to do a minimum of $10,000, we got a couple points. They took that out. They now get very specific to get those points. Let me see if I can find it here because they made quite a few changes. For loans now, if we wanted to get the same 2 points that we had before, at least 16% of the percent of the request that is loan, must be a loan. So in other words, of your total request from OPWC, so grant funds plus loan, that a minimum of 16% of that must be in there as loan in order to get the same equivalent 2 points we received before. And they increased this as opposed to saying that you either had less than 50% or you had no loan, which you got 0 points, less than 50% you got to, over 50%, I don't recall if it was 4 or 5, but you got more, but those were the only thresholds. They now have points from 0, 1, 2 through 5, with percentages from 5% on up to 100%. But your threshold level, really to get 5 points, you got to have 76%, so more than 3/4 loan. And that's not something we're asked to do. So just to get the 2 points that we received before, that the trustees are aware, is I made sure that of our total request from OPWC for both of these is at least 16%. I didn't see in here where it gave any indication of the minimum loan amount, but in every case, I thought, well, it's probably still going to be that $10,000 amount. So they are sitting at that. We'll get through that here in a little bit. They also, where they used to have the last item, would give you some flexibility, and to me this was where the integrating committee could debate among themselves when you're trying to get through, hey, do I give extra points for this particular project because there's some other extenuating circumstances. They used to have like the need of the proposed project was one of them. Conformance with sound fiscal management policies was another. But they added a whole bunch of others now, and where you used to be able to get up to 10 points, they now only allow up to max of 8 points. They now added in applicant's history of investing in bridge and highway improvements. Is the project multi-jurisdictional route? Average daily traffic count, size of the population affected by the improvement, multiple community projects. That would help if we have like Amherst partner, which we now probably won't do until we do the north side. And talking with the mayor was tough because they're on recess through August, and we're already past, but that's when I was talking with them. And he just thought even with them trying to get this through, we might be too constrained with timelines. So he said most likely the next round's around 36. So I'm counting on that, since we'll have more time, that the next one we'll do with Amherst, which will grab some of these points. But I'm not going to go through the others. If you guys want these, they added a whole bunch of items. You get through all of this and some of the new ones. They've changed what this is, so if you're comfortable with this, I'm going to ask that you allow me to work with Linda, and Kevin will need some of your input on this, but we're going to try and minimize the demand on you to get these done. But essentially I'm looking at, for Dewey Road, we had an estimate from the county engineer of $108,500 to get the 74% OPWC funds, which is one of the cutoffs. That would be $80,290. To make 16% of those total funds loan would mean a loan of $12,850. That would net out your grant amount as $67,440, which means for Dewey Road, Amherst Township funds, assuming it's close to the engineer's estimate, would be $28,210 in 2021. For Hidden Valley, this is going to be pretty close, but I had to adjust some numbers to hit their new thresholds. It would be a $60,000 total in concrete work, $35,400, which would represent 59% of total OPWC funds. Of that, $10,000 would amount to a 28% loan amount, but that doesn't hit that 28%. Just so you guys are aware, we have to get to 31 to get an extra point. And I wasn't sure if you wanted to do that or not. The 10,000 is what we used in the past, but just if we just did 10,000, which only gives us 2 additional points on a specific item dealing with loans, that would mean 25,400 grant, 24,600 for the Amherst Township match.
Let's pass both of them.
Okay, but the question is on this one is, do we increase the loan amount? Let me get the number. To get up to that extra point, we would need 31%, so 0.31 times 35,400. That's really about $11,000. So I'm asking you guys if you want us to adjust that to get that extra point.
You mean going from 10 to 11?
Yes.
Yes, if we can get extra point for $1,000 bucks, let's do it.
As long as you guys are okay with us adjusting this, because we're not going to have in the past of sitting down and going over this.
No, let's do it.
What do you want to do? You want to do 11,000
instead of 10?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll rework the numbers.
24,400 for grant funds?
The grant funds would probably go, they would go down.
Yeah,
they'd probably be like 23.
The split would be 24,400, 11,000 then, right?
Yes, it'll be around 11,000. I'll work out the numbers there, David, but I just want you guys to be aware, because last year we just put in a 10 to hit, just to get some point, but they've changed the criteria. And since we're so close to that extra percentage, the next threshold, I prefer to go to it as long as you guys are in agreement.
Yes, yes. So we'll make that change and let's pass the resolution on both of these.
Okay.
You bring them forth, Neil.
Which one's going first?
Yeah, well, we'll take them in order here, Chris. The first one is the prepared resolution, authorization to file the Ohio Public Works Commission Round 35 application for funding of the Hidden Valley subdivision concrete replacement. This is on Moss Canyon Drive. It's 242-foot full width of roadway. I've got the engineer's estimate included in there, but if we just let's see, I'm going to have to change these amounts. So how about if Section 1, Amherst Township Chairperson Neil Lynch or Dennis Abraham, the trustee assigned responsibility for roads, and the Township Road Superintendent Kevin Smarsh are authorized to request financial assistance for the Hidden Valley subdivision concrete replacement Moss Canyon project from the Ohio Public Works Commission for road reconstruction, resurfacing, and improvement in order to prevent further road damage caused by poor surface drainage, and to sign any agreement required for the project. The project should not exceed $60,000, and the local revenue share provided by Amherst Township, I already put it in here, shall not exceed $27,000, and I'll explain that in a minute. The Hidden Valley subdivision concrete replacement for Moss Canyon project is expected to be bid and awarded and constructed in 2020. That's because one of the requirements where you get points is you got to be ready to do it within six months of the award, which we obviously would be. And the Amherst Township Fiscal Officer is directed to pay for the Hidden Valley subdivision concrete replacement, road, and all the other verbiage. And Chris, you already know this. So just so the trustees are aware, even though we explained that specific split, one of the whereases, the way legal counsel's explained to me, that's just a preamble. That means nothing. It's what you passed. And by already saying it shall not exceed, that gives us the flexibility to change the numbers on the actual grant application to optimize the points at the approximate numbers I just told you of 11,000 in loan. But you know, the numbers may be slightly different. I'm going to try and put us in the best position. But the whole project shouldn't exceed 60,000. You comfortable with that, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, but are you amending the whereas? Are you changing
No,
that?
I'm not. I'm leaving the whereas the way it is because the way legal counsel's explained this to me in the past, and more because of different litigation we've been involved in, that whereas doesn't mean anything. That's just kind of explaining things. I don't want to get it tied down, David, because as soon as I say $11,000, and if you want that down in what our section, what we actually are voting on, then it has to be $11,000. It might be $10,394. Okay?
Well, you don't know what those guys, you won't know till it's bid, or till they're done.
Bid is still going to be proportional. That's why I just asked Kevin. He's comfortable with the 60,000. This will go to public bid.
We're not going to exceed 60 on the project and 27 for our share.
Correct. And the public bid, we can reject them all if they are above 60,000. But if they're less than 60,000, with the new rules, which these were even put in the old rules back when Bill Holtzman was still the engineer, because they made that change, if the bid comes in lower than the engineer's estimate, you still have to take the same proportion of loan funds, okay? Because there were more of the larger cities at one time were gaming the system. They would ask for a huge loan component, and they would have their engineers to give a much higher cost of the project than it was. So say it's a $250,000 project, and they're going to take $100,000 in loan. Lo and behold, it comes in, it's only $150,000. They say, we'll just take the $150,000 grant, we don't need the loan. And so they finally, the district said, no, we're not doing this anymore. They changed the rules. Now you have to take a percentage of what your project is, still has to be the same percentage of loan as to what's been approved. So that hasn't changed. So I just want to have the flexibility to adjust this to maximize our points, but it won't exceed 60,000. The Amherst Township share won't exceed 27,000. Okay, that's what we would pay in 2021 as our own internal funds. We would not see our first loan payment until 2022.
Point of order, we have a first and second on this. Need a roll call.
Okay. Yeah,
This is what, okay, you made it.
and Denny seconded.
And Denny seconded.
And we're finished with discussion,
Denny
right?
seconded.
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Euring?
Yes.
And the number on that, Chris?
Is 9-5.
In covering that and this one, Kevin, just so you're aware, they also got into this, and I don't know how much they're going to expect this, but photos, documentation, and I'll talk with Linda on that. That's something that may get to you, may not. I did not take photos as I was going out there this past week on these, but just wanted to get a determination which sections first. Oh, you know what I forgot on this, you guys, is one of the other items is safety. This estimate does not include any increase in the road width. I seem to recall, and there are points for if it's a safety project. I recall at a meeting many years ago, and it would have been when we resurfaced Overland Road 2 times ago, you guys discussing paved berms.
Yes. We got extra money on paved berms or extra points. It was safety, but I think that was also a separate project, putting the paved berms in too. It also costs more to do that. So I wouldn't say it was a wash, but it was.
The reason I'm asking, because I don't know, there are points, and the new ones too, just as there was the old one for safety.
You're talking about relevant to the resolution we just passed?
The one coming up for Dewey Road, the one we just did
Dewey,
was
for South Dewey.
for South Dewey.
Okay.
Because the estimate we have from the engineer's office does not include the paved berm. It includes a 1-foot stone berm. Let me find it here. I know it was on there. Yeah, an aggregate berm, 1 foot wide on each side, 2-inch depth. And if you go over there, the
What kind of
lane
points do
lines
we
are
get
pretty
for
much
that?
right on the edge.
What kind of points do we get for
That's a
it?
good question. But as David pointed out, it'll be additional money, and we'd have to get a new estimate on that because we didn't ask for that.
Do we have time to do that?
Well, it's due November 6th, so it all depends if Sean DeFowler, how quickly he can give us an estimate. I would think he could, because we do have to submit with the engineer's stamp on it. He could probably tell us over the phone so we could start preparing it and then get his official
Estimate.
yes, later with his stamp on it that we have to provide as part of the grant application.
Well, can we find out what the points are and see
I'll
if
tell
it's
you,
worth it?
yeah, let me find the points here.
Seems how we're just gonna be doing from Little Ridge to Acton Road, you know, you could just give us that.
Just bear with me. I know what's in here. Well, Denny, I'm missing it right now, but I know what's in here. Generation of revenue. How about if you guys let me just get this done then, as long as we're set on this, let's see what this reads. Put it on here. I did not put the amount in the actual execution of the resolution. So if you guys are comfortable with that, I'll get the actual item with the points. I believe it was 2 points. We're not talking huge amount, but it may be the difference between being awarded or not. But the real thing is, do we see an importance of widening that paving? Because right now the edge lines are painted pretty much right on the edge. But it would increase the cost. And if we
Yeah,
do it,
depending on how much you would have to build those berms. Dewey Road's traveled quite a bit, isn't it? Well, people are using that as go-through to get to North Ridge.
when the safety project started in the past, did they do anything with the subbase, or did they just stone down and pave over the stone on the berm?
I don't know.
Something would have to be done.
As far as I knew, I thought he was taken out. I thought they dug out and they Basically widen the road, there was a new base put down, and then when they paved the road, pave over the top.
That whole woods area, like where all these rice falls, that ditch drops off from the edge of that road, that ditch,
So if they widen that a foot, they're gonna have to build that up, aren't they? That could be pretty costly, widening that.
Yeah, well, if you look at the road, it's all different in where it goes.
Right, because all the way through them guardrails, that road is right on the edge of the guardrail. You might have 6, 8 inches, but it's pretty.
Well, or they may have to just go one side and change the center line.
Yeah.
Neil, as I think about it, with all the things we're doing and everything that's going on, maybe the timing is not correct to look at spending more money there.
Well, let me look at it and talk with Sean. He may not, maybe we do it the next one when we have more time, but I was just, as I was driving over there and then looking at the criteria, I was wondering, well, why wasn't this one paved berms when the others were?
Why don't you talk to Sean, take a look at it, and make a decision after that.
Okay.
See if the points are worth it. And the dollar cost for those berms could be significant.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And would not make it worth it to get the points.
Sometimes I think it was like a two-phase project. First you had to do the berms. You had to do the base for the berms, so that took time. And you couldn't do the paving until you had the base in for the berms.
So you want to put this one on hold, or what? Or go ahead and pass it?
No, I think we're going to pass it now because,
okay, well then why don't you bring it?
Here's the worst case. One, we don't know if we'll even get approved. Right. And if we do get approved, based on Sean's direction and based on physical conditions, maybe this section we can't, but the next section now we'll have more time to work on. Plus, we're probably going to get a cooperative agreement with the city, so we do everything from Ackerman and what's in the city all the way up to North Ridge. Maybe we widen that portion for the project that we apply for in 2021 for completion in 2022, assuming any of us are even here anymore.
Okay, well, with that said, why don't you bring the motion forward?
Okay. Well, this is the authorization to file Ohio Public Works Commission Round 35 application for funding the South Dewey Road TR 105 resurfacing project from Middle Ridge Road to Ackerman Road, Amherst Corp lines of Amherst Township. It's approximately 3,380 feet and an area of 7,647 square yards. Now therefore be it resolved by the trustee of the Township of Amherst, Amherst Township Chairperson Neil Lynch or Dennis Abraham, the trustee assigned responsibility for roads, and the Township Road Superintendent Kevin Smarsh are authorized to request financial assistance for the South Dewey Road TR 105 resurfacing project from the Ohio Public Works Commission for road reconstruction, resurfacing, and improvement in order to prevent further road damage caused by poor surface drainage, and to sign any agreements required for the project. The South Dewey Road resurfacing project is expected to be bid and awarded in 2021 within the 6 months of the OPWC grant award. And then again, Chris, this is boilerplate for you and the funding, and the last one that this all information and discussions occurred in a public meeting. So that'll be my motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call, Chris.
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes.
9-6.
9-6.
Okay, the next one, this is the Hidden Valley Subdivision Concrete Replacement Project authorization. The area is approximately, and David, I think you were asking this at the last meeting, is 7404 Hidden Glen, 7448 Hidden Glen, 415 Berry Ridge, and 544 to 548 Fieldstone, and then also the Aspen Oak Knoll intersection. This is where Kevin asked at the last meeting some additional concrete work that he thought really needed to be done in some pretty poor areas in Hidden Valley. Most of these, we went out and actually walked, right, Georgianne, and could say, see this one, this one. Yeah, Kevin had them marked pretty good. But he did, at the time, he had one estimate. He now has 4 estimates. You got copies of all of them there, ranging from $42,897.73 up to $53,400. There are some subtle differences, and one, it's not going to matter because it's even a high estimate where we were expected to do any type of seeding and backfill afterwards, whereas the one Kevin's recommending, which is set in stone, all that work's included. And they've got the full dowel baskets that are nice. It appears, Kevin, from this, they are going to put the dowels in to tie the sections together. Okay, good. But in any case, the motion will be that Amherst Township Road Superintendent Kevin Smarsh is authorized to award the Hidden Valley Subdivision Concrete Replacement Project, and it just re-explains all those different areas I mentioned earlier, to set in stone at the bid price of $42,897 for road reconstruction. Not going to read the rest of that detail. And that the project scope should not exceed, and I put $45,000 there, Kevin, just so you have some wiggle room in case something else comes up from there, and they don't have to remobilize. The Hidden Valley Subdivision Concrete Replacement Project is expected to be awarded and constructed in 2020. And Chris, Section 3 just talks about the payment for accounting, and Section 3 is just that it was all done in an open meeting. So that'll be my motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, Chris.
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Euring?
Yes.
That's 9-7.
That is 9-7.
Okay, and the final resolution, this is the one to amend the plan adopted under the Ohio Public Employees Deferred Comp Program to include a Roth 457 option. This is something that is new this year. Ohio Deferred Comp has been talking about this now for a couple of years. It's pretty much for all deferred comp programs, even the private industry, the 401ks, and for some of the nonprofits and educational things on their 403B. Is for the public sector, it's predominantly the 457B. And so now that up until this point, you could only defer compensation on a pre-tax basis. This gives the employee the option of doing it after tax, and that's something, it's an option for the employee to decide, but this is probably timeliness with the current tax law, the changes that were done a couple years ago, and depending upon the employee's total household income, they might find it advantageous to use the Roth option right now, or at least a portion of the Roth option, as opposed to full deferred comp that they would pay taxes on later. So pay the tax on the contribution now and get all the earnings tax-free in the future, versus the one they have now, they don't pay taxes now, but then all earnings and really all contributions are taxed in the future. So this is just to get it started, for us to participate or give the employees that option. Ohio Public Employees Deferred Comp requires that we pass a resolution. So I'll make a motion that the Ohio Public Employees Deferred Comp Program previously adopted by the Amherst Township Board of Trustees shall be amended to include the Roth option. Section 2, the Amherst Township Fiscal Officer is directed to execute the attached Exhibit B and to take necessary action to ensure eligible Amherst Township employees can participate in the Ohio Public Works Employees Deferred Compensation Program Roth option beginning during a payroll period determined by the fiscal officer. And the rest is all boilerplate, so that'll be my motion.
Second. Give him a second.
You got David on that, Chris? Okay, any discussion? A roll call, Chris?
Lynch?
Yes?
Urick?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
That's 9-8.
That is 9-8.
You saw the way that's worded, Chris, it gives you full control over the timing of that, because I know you'll need it.
Yes, I will. And actually, the cleanest, easiest way would be first quarter of 2021.
Okay, and that,
Because
it's all
then I
up
don't
to
have
you.
to alter any W-2s, I don't have to, so, but I'm still gonna have to see if somebody can talk to you guys, and then I've got the paperwork you all have to sign, and then I have to get it back to them, and then they have to get it back to us, and
okay.
so
And
it
then
could
once-
be that anyhow.
And hopefully by then, Georgianne's got a full system up here and the training. We don't have to worry about scheduling
Right.
someone from Columbus to come
Right.
up here. They can all sit in this meeting hall, and that'll give us more flexibility of doing this. And maybe now they'll be more willing to do it on our crew's time schedule versus their schedule. Okay, thank you. Okay, there's one other item Georgianne asked me to bring up that she needs a trustee's decision on. It's penciled in under new business for you, and that's trick or treat. Well,
Probably
We've
what
already gotten phone calls.
gets more phone calls and attention than anything else we do through the whole year.
I hear you're chuckling, but it does seem the things that affect people the most, whether it's, yard bands, trick or treat, which for us.
I got a phone call today.
Yeah, well, Georgianne's got to put it in the newsletter. I did not print what Dave Koval had sent from the health commissioner here, but you sent that out to everybody?
I don't think so. I can send it out, but he basically said that it's an outside event and it should be okay for the kids. Recommended that maybe residents pass the candy out rather than let the kids stick their hand in there. And then he just recommended that parents providing their kids to wash their hands before and after handling the candy.
But he even seemed, if I recall, encouraging in his email, like, hey, do this event. People need something that can be done safely. And just as we've always said, if someone feels uncomfortable, don't do it. Turn off your light. Don't do it. If you're uncomfortable with your kids, don't participate. It's your option. All we're setting is the date and time. And
And usually we did it on a Sunday from 1 to 3. And what Sunday was that?
The Sunday before.
The Sunday before would be October 25th.
All right, well,
Halloween falls on Saturday, October 31st.
right.
well then,
And in light of COVID, doing it during the daytime, even more important.
yeah. So I think, it's a safe time. It's a time when parents are off. And, we've had this discussion before, so that's set.
Okay, you're all set then, David? Georgianne will put what the health department has recommended in there, and we'll get that date set. She just needs it now because she's got to get that newsletter done, published.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right, those are all the items I had to be covered for tonight that required action. Let's see, talk with Remy. So is there anything else here on the agenda that you have specific responsibility for that you need to cover?
I have nothing right now. We have quite a to-do list to do now.
Yes, and our next regular meeting will be on September 22nd. The question is whether we have a work session and when. I think we're all covered with the Engle Ditch now, right, Chris? So all this paperwork I printed here and put together, and you don't need now, right? As long as Don or Jessica If
Yeah.
provided the reimbursement, we're okay.
Well, that was for the 12, but they still, that's the only payments they've gotten. Haynes has only gotten the 10 and the 12 that I'm sending tonight.
Yeah. Well,
There's
he's
still-
working the
He-
big one out. with
There has been
Pete.
emails going back and forth regarding
Yeah.
the third round of, not the right word, third draw.
Will you, we'll talk later. I'm prepared to offer a motion to adjourn.
And I
We got
I
into
think
the
I'll
next
accept that
meeting.
without doing a work session yet, but eventually, just keep in mind, we've got coming up, these other grants are gonna be due this year in the application, they all take work. So we just won't set one right now,
No?
but we may have to have a call on this, so hopefully you guys are available. Try and keep Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. open, okay? All right, and as far as I don't see any need for an executive session, unless you guys wanted one, but I don't have a whole lot to bring up on
No,
that one
no.
court case here. All right, then I'll second your motion to adjourn.
Abraham?
Motion.
Yes.
Lynch?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes. I never second a motion to adjourn, Neil.